You're listening to MinerTalk on demand exclusively on 600 ESPN El Paso. Stay up to date with MinerTalk by downloading the free 600 ESPN El Paso mobile app.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
All right, welcome back. We are live. It is Miner Talk, presented by Jack in the Box. I'm Adrian Broadus, joined by Alberto Reta. We have a double-header here tonight, a double dip, I should say. Double-header would indicate that UTEP football is after this men's basketball game, but that's not the case. UTEP football is currently going on right now. This is a live game that we will bring you our thoughts and our coverage from after the fact. But Miner Talk is live, and we are talking UTEP hoops. And oh boy, you listen to the first edition of Miner Talk on the men's side after the Sul Ross game, and you listen to Miner Talk after this one, which was a near 30-point loss. It's basically two different games. The game tonight that we saw from UTEP, or today I should say, from UTEP men's basketball, an utter disappointment. I mean, I don't really have anything else to say other than that. It was so disappointing that I was almost checked out in that second half. I mean, you go on the road against a team in the WAC Challenge. I get it. They're a pretty good team, and they've won a lot of games at home over the past 2 seasons. But you go out there and you lose almost by 30 points. And it tells you where my expectations are on this team. I have high expectations for this group because this is a squad right here where they have the veteran experience. They have older guys on this team. They have 4 years under head coach Joe Golding. Yet falling today by nearly 30 points on the road, it's not the way that you want to start off your road schedule, especially because you talked all offseason long about how much of a better road team you want to be. And I get it. Joe Golding coached teams have traditionally not been good on the road over the past couple of years, but still, Joe Golding called it an embarrassing loss. I'd agree. I feel like it was utterly embarrassing for this UTEP basketball squad, and that's where we tip off things here for this UTEP basketball team. Alberto, I thought, I know you were at UTEP football, and we're going to get to football here in just a little bit. And I know that we thought this game would be tough for the Miners right after that Sul Ross game. We thought it would be a tough one for this UTEP squad. But to lose on the road like this by almost 30 points, were you surprised seeing the score when it was all said and done?
Yeah, I was really surprised, not even when it was all said and done, even at the beginning when I was getting text that UTEP was down 12-0. To start things off for the game, so that was extremely disappointing and alarming. And I was just really surprised, and it kind of really dictated the tone for the rest of the night. And the Miners weren't able to recover, unfortunately.
You're right, and it was one of those things that when they were down 15-0 and they started to rally back, I think the score was like 18-10. I thought, okay, the Miners this is who UTEP is. They're a team that's relentless. They're a team that won't quit. They have a lot of fight to them, and they're going to get punched in the face, but they're going to come right back. And speaking of punched in the face, we got to get to the ejection. 5 players ejected throughout this game, including 2 from the Miners and David Terrell Jr. and, of course, Ahmad Bynum from this matchup. We'll get to that as well, but the Miners got punched in the face early. I liked how they responded, Alberto, but I didn't like how UTEP, just carried themselves the rest of that first half, and then to start the second half. I don't think you can make the argument that this Utah Valley team was more talented than UTEP. I think they had, definitely they had the more of the size advantage in this game. But, as far as the Miners go in this one, it's just a poor effort shooting on their side. And then defensively, allowing 52% scoring. In the second half, they were outscored 46-32. It was just a killer, like an absolute killing by Utah Valley in this game here, Alberto. And for the Miners returning home against UTPB, we're not going to find out about them in that game. It's probably going to be 11 days from now when UTEP heads to UC Santa Barbara and takes on the Gauchos, when we're going to get a chance to see UTEP go up against another quality opponent on the basketball side of things.
Yeah, they still have a couple of softballs before they get to some serious teams like this Utah Valley team. But, let me say this. It's some of the very familiar issues from last year, right? The Miners get outboarded. The Miners have a poor shooting performance. The Miners can't put it together when it's all said and done, and they fall to a team that, when you really chalk it all up and you analyze the lineups, you can't say that this Utah Valley team is violently more talented and more skilled than the UTEP Miners are. So that's what is kind of disappointing. So I think this is a great place to start for the Miners.
Yeah, I think so too. You know what? I'll just say this. I don't know what's ahead for the Miners. I don't know. I think Tuesday it's going to be an absolute blowout on their side. They're gonna have a say that they go on the road to UC Santa Barbara and they lose again. Well, you come back, or you go on the road to that Las Vegas Bulldogs Classic in late November. With a 2-2 record and an 0-2 record overall when it comes to Division I squads. So I feel like that really hurts the Miners here for the near future. And I don't know what to make of this loss here early on in the season. Is this a red flag? Is this a time to panic? No, not necessarily. We all get it. Miners need to peak late in the spring when this game really, or when the season really matters. But at the same time, you want to see things that they've preached all offseason long come to fruition. And one of the things that has been hammered home by this coaching staff and this team is that they've been tested on the road. And it hasn't really been the case, right? I mean, they went to the Bahamas, didn't really get tested over there, although it was a great bonding and chemistry experience. They go on the road to Chihuahua, and they beat a team over there, and that doesn't really give them a test of, like a big challenge right there in that matchup. Then they go on the road against New Mexico in that exhibition game, Alberto, and that's where I thought, okay, things look good because they hung in there against the Lobos. You could even make an argument that they had chances to win that game. But I have to ask you, Alberto, like how do you bounce back when, you play New Mexico so closely? And look at what happened to New Mexico last night, right? They beat UCLA, and so you're thinking, okay, well, Miners played New Mexico extremely close. But do we look back on that one and think, well, that's just an exhibition when it matters, and when they're going up against a team who has a pretty sizable roster and who has a good home court advantage like Utah Valley did, they just won't play that well, I guess. I guess that's the takeaway from this one, knowing that Utah Valley ends up winning 89-60. How do you assess it, knowing that they played New Mexico, but they struggled mightily on the road today for 40 minutes and didn't really stand a chance at all?
Yeah, these early season games are really hit or miss from any team, right? On any side of any conference, no matter what the skill level is and what they're expected to do throughout the season, is sometimes they'll have a great performance and sometimes they'll come out cold and the team doesn't look as they should. And maybe that was the case when the UTEP Miners went out to the pit and played the New Mexico Lobos, and now the Miners are all excited and there's not as much substance there as there really is.
Yeah, I totally am on you on that one because, look, what you're talking about with maybe not a lot of substance in that one, it's an exhibition game. So maybe, you don't let the Wolves out in that matchup, but in a game like this, when you're going up against a team in Utah Valley who wants to start off their season on the right note, Utah Valley just showed up. I mean, that's you could simply say it that way as well. They were ready to go. They fired 52% shooting from the field, 53 from beyond the arc. They made 10 3-pointers. Meanwhile, on the Miners side, you had a struggling game from guys like David Terrell Jr. Devin Barnes was 4 of 14 from the field. Otis Frazier III, 1 of 8 today from the field. 11 points because of those 9 for 9 free throws. But, when the Miners couldn't make shots in the first half, I wish they would have attacked the rim a little bit more. They were in that double bonus for a long time, and it felt like they didn't attack the rim enough and how they could have. So, I'm disappointed with this road opener for the Miners. I think the coaching staff is really disappointed right now. Soul searching will need to happen between now, not in Tuesday, now and that UC Santa Barbara game, which will be Wednesday, November 20th. And for that one, you want to see the Miners come out and play much better than they did today. Before we get to Kurt, and we got a lot of tweets to get to as well here on the program on Miner Talk. By the way, our telephone number, 915-505-6009, if you want to weigh in on the show. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and then 600 ESPN El Paso, our free mobile app. Football game is winding down, by the way. I don't want to give too much away for this game unless it gets super close, and we have to, really monitor this one on our side. It is a one-score game, though, so we will bring you a little bit of Miner Talk, a little double-dip Miner Talk, and talk a little football here in just a little bit. But more from this basketball game. Okay, so the big highlight that a lot of people will take away was this is the ejection game. And could this be remembered as the ejection game? My answer to that is yes. What happened in the second half, there was a little bit of a skirmish between Corey Camper and two players from Utah Valley. What happened after that was David Terrell Jr. Rushed over and tried to jump to Corey Camper Jr.'s defense. I mean, David Terrell was just, coming over there, but there was a little bit of pushing, shoving. There was claims that, hands were actually thrown. So Ahmad Bynum, who was caught in the scrum as well, he threw a right jab. I don't know if he connected necessarily, but he threw one. And as a result, he was thrown out of the game. David Terrell was thrown out of the game as well. And then there were a couple players off the bench from Utah Valley who tried to get involved in this one as well. So 3 players from the Wolverines got tossed from this game and 2 Miners. So it just, going on the road in that first game, having that happen in the second half, they were already down 19, but it just took all the air out from the Miners, and there was, in my opinion, after that one, there's no way that the Miners were going to come back after that. I thought in the heat of the moment, okay, maybe this could be some kind of fiery moment here for the Miners, but it led to ejections, Alberto, instead of leading to maybe like technical fouls on both sides, but the ejection side of it, not having David Terrell Jr., not having Ahmad Bynum to close out the game, that's where I have the red flag.
Yeah, you lose 2 key guys going late into crucial moments for the Miners, and that's just you can't have that and expect to close out a game, especially a game like this game against Utah Valley. So I personally don't necessarily see against the call to maybe get in there for your guys, but I think that it's definitely going to hurt you every time anyone gets tossed out.
Okay, the reason why I think a lot of people are looking over to the Sun Bowl right now is Kennesaw State just ran back a punt all the way to the UTEP 18-yard line. Miners had it under 5 to go in the game. They're up 28-21 in football, okay? Kennesaw State just returned a punt 34 yards to the UTEP 18. Kennesaw State is now threatening to score under 4 minutes to go in that football game. We'll recap the entire game here on Miner Talk for football. We had Alberto on site. Zay is on site right now, and there's a lot to digest and dissect from that football game. But let's keep our eyes focused on hoops right now. 915-505-6009. Kurt is up first. Kurt, good evening, man. What's happening?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Kurt, it's great to hear your voice, man. But it's unfortunate that we have to talk about another UTEP loss. Give me your thoughts on this one.
Okay, my thoughts, besides the skirmish and all that, you know what? This is a veteran team, guys, on the road against Utah Valley, they're mid-major, but I'm disappointed because you know what? I see that we still have no big guys down low in the blocks. 10 guys, Kalu, Hamilton, he's out of shape still. Just walks. He's soft down low. Golding did not bring any big guys, and he's been here 4 years. And we need we need guys down low in the post. We're a guard heavy team. We got some more shooters this year. So that being said, I don't know how the team is going to going forward, what they're going to be like. But to me, if you don't have good bigs down low that can score, then it's going to be a long season, in my opinion.
Kurt, I would agree with that too, but let me ask you this. Could you just say this is a one-off? Could you say they use this as kind of a learning moment and springboard themselves for the rest of the year, or are you legitimately worried? Because I don't think they're going to go to a interior presence game. Kurt, you say,
No.
well, they need guys down low. The only 2 guys they're going to go to down low are Kevin Kalu and Derek Hamilton. Those are the only 2 guys they have with some size down low.
Yeah, I know, and that's the only 2 guys we've ever had the last 3 years. So, he's unable to bring in some other guys that can put the ball in the basket that are bigs, that can pull out, shoot the three. And so we're going to be guard-heavy team. And then going forward, I just hope that this team can play 40 minutes of hell and play defense and hit the boards. And that's what they're going to have to do, because the guards are going to have to take over the game, evidently, because our bigs that's just who they are. They're not a big presence down low and scoring, and that's just the way that this team's identity this year.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. Kurt, where are you at with this team? Where do you feel like we're going to learn more about this team? Because I thought we would learn a little bit about this team today. And as far as this group goes, you can make one argument. Don't overreact too much to this loss right here. But on the other side of it, you could say, hey, this is a kind of a microcosm of who they've been over the years here, just on the road, struggling on the road in these losses.
Yes, I agree. That's a great assessment. On the road, they fall apart on the road for some reason, and men win on the road, boys win at home. That's a true fact, and they better get their what together, because men win on the road, and then they got to play all out 40 minutes of hell, and I hope they do, because to establish their identity going forward.
Okay, good job, Kurt. I appreciate the phone call, man. Thanks for weighing in on the program. 915-505-6009. That is our telephone number. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and 600 ESPN El Paso online, where you can also check out our free mobile app as well. I also want to push that. 600 ESPN El Paso, our free mobile app. Well, Alberto, the football game is tied. Miners have the ball. It's under 3 to go, and this could end up being this could all rest on Buzz Flabiano's shoulders here to close out the game. Miners with 2 timeouts on the football side of things, plus the 2-minute warning. Let's see what happens here for this squad now that they have the ball around their 30-yard line. So I'm surprised the Owls didn't just go for 2 and just try to win it. Are you not surprised? Or maybe this just goes to overtime. We get some bonus football here for UTEP football. What do you think?
That would have been a gutsy call to go for 2 there, because you also lose the game there. I think that if I'm Kennesaw State, I put it in the points on the board. Your kicker has struggled all season. Your offense hasn't necessarily worked all game or all year. Go put some points on the board, because if you kick that ball back to me, I've done well in the second half, and I can probably do some damage.
Okay, let's see what ends up happening. Miners and Kennesaw State tied 28-28. The Owls of Kennesaw State, by the way. We'll get Alberto's thoughts on football here in just a little bit, but let's keep it moving with basketball. 915-505-6009. Couple tweets to get to right now, right out of the gates. Herman Flores. Embarrassing. Getting blown out by 30 by a rec league looking dudes with old man moves. That's from Herman Flores. By the way, the jerseys that Utah Valley were rocking, I was texting with Hunter, good friend of the program here, as we continue. He was saying he had the funniest thing. He said, it reminds me of my old rec league games, but we had better uniforms. That's hilarious right there. They had ugly uniforms, Utah Valley did. And again, here I'll mention this one again, as we got a line ringing in here on the program on MinerTalk. This is part of the WAC Challenge. Miners lost last year at Abilene Christian, is part of the WAC Challenge as well. Then they came back home and lost to Seattle. So Miners haven't necessarily been very good in the WAC Challenge. They're 0-3, by the way, in the WAC Challenge as these first 2 seasons have been underway. Miners will host Tarleton State this year on Monday, December 16th. But for the Miners and for all the the things that they talk on their side when it comes to this this basketball program trying to be better on the road, not having success on the road, and especially in this UTEP I guess this WAC CUSA challenge, that's the bad thing right there. That's where I get pretty disappointed with this squad. When you stack this up with other road losses that they've had over the Golding era, I'll reel off a couple other ones, okay? Because we'll kind of try to stack this one up and where it stands in some of the worst losses on the road in the Golding era, okay? So we'll talk about number 3, Kansas defeating UTEP 78-52. That was Thursday, December 7th. That was year 1 of Golding. I don't really count that one right there. Alberto, feel free to jump in wherever you want here on this one right here as we continue for some road analyses over the years for Joe Golding. Then year 2 for Golding, they lose 72-57 at number 5 Texas. kind of expected right there. They lose 95-70 that same season in Las Cruces. That's before New Mexico State and UTEP were in the same conference. That was a pretty bad loss, but I actually thought this one was worse. 21-point loss to DePaul, 91-70 on the road. That was a really bad loss right there. And I thought DePaul wasn't very good that year. And actually, they finished out that season 10-23. So, yeah, when you're looking at that one right there, that almost 21-point loss to DePaul, that has to be in the conversation for one of the worst non-conference losses in the Golding era. You could also look back at last year. Last year on the road, losing to Loyola Marymount the way that they did, 67-47. That was a 20-point loss.
I remember that one.
Yeah, not
that
to mention a 71-49 loss last season as well to Oregon. But it's that Loyola Marymount game, Alberto, that kind of sticks with you, and you feel like, that's kind of a bad loss right there.
Yeah, you only put up 47 points. It's just not enough in D1 basketball. It reminds you of a high-scoring football game, if anything.
Speaking of high-scoring football game, the Miners are facing. Actually, wait a second. Are we actually saying this right now? Yeah, this is the Miners. They've got the ball at their own 32-yard line, facing fourth down, and now under 2 minutes to go. Kennesaw State with 2 timeouts. They might get the ball back here as we continue. They'll have a chance to win this game. UTEP gets stopped on 3rd and short. But we're talking UTEP basketball right now. We'll recap the football game once it is all over. Let's go out to the phone lines right now, 915-505-6009. Let's go to one of the best Twitter follows that you will find on Twitter and X. It is Sidelines UTEP. That's SSN UTEP if you've seen him on Twitter and X. Sidelines, welcome aboard. You are not on the sidelines tonight for UTEP football. Instead, you took the sideline of your couch to watch UTEP men's basketball. I did pretty much the same thing, except for I was back here in the studios. So I know you have a lot of thoughts on this one. So you tell me, Sidelines, let's start it off with your first instant reactions to almost a 30-point loss.
Oh man, well, thank you for the introduction, Adrian. That was awesome, man. Man, it was just disappointing all around. Everything that we saw last year kind of came into fruition right in the beginning, and not having that consistent shooter to compete with Utah Valley. I mean, Utah Valley, I think they shot over 50% today. Oh man, they made every single shot, and I think that's something that killed UTEP today, was not having anybody to match those shots. It was a bad day from Trey Horton. I don't think he drained a shot. I think Devin Barnes missed a few as well. But overall, it was kind of a terrible shooting night. And defensively, it wasn't probably one of the most finest, moments as well. But it's just a little bit of a disappointment. I'm trying to kind of see, the light at the end of the tunnel, because, I mean, this is game 2, This
right.
is kind of when you want to see the team kind of look at their worst and kind of, build off of these losses and whatnot. But just a disappointing loss, man. I wanted UTEP to prove me wrong and, win a couple games on the road this year. And from the beginning, it kind of looks like it's going to be another problem this year.
Well, I'll ask you this, Sidelines. You tell me, what's the worst loss in your... I reeled off all those road losses that UTEP has had in basketball in non-conference play. Is this the worst one, or did you feel like any of those other ones I reeled off were worse than this one here tonight? Utah Valley winning 89-60 over UTEP.
I think that Loyola Marymount, we played them last year, right?
That was last year, yeah.
Court.
Yeah.
Man, that game still haunts me to this day because it was an awful shooting night all around. It kind of reminds me of this game. Is this the worst loss? I think it is. Maybe the loss against UT, but I mean, that's more understandable, coming from a Power 4 school. You don't want to be losing by almost 30 to Utah Valley, guys. I think it could be up there, though, for sure.
Okay, I'll read you a quick stat. So against Loyola Marymount, Miners only scored 47 points. That was my biggest issue with that. Under 50 points, you're only scoring there. But they shot 38% from the field. Sidelines tonight, they shot 26%. I think the shooting woes were just the worst part of tonight, knowing that all you heard all offseason long was how this team was going to be better shooting on the road, and they just really weren't tonight.
Yeah, no, it's really disappointing, man. And it's tough, because we watched that Sol Ross game and we're just like, kind of bamboozled a little bit, just kind of like watching that game like, okay, UTEP has, a consistent shooter. But it turns out, maybe it was just a bad night from UTEP, but I think we're still trying to figure out who that consistent shooter is on this roster.
Yeah, and maybe they don't have like a go-to scorer, and maybe that's the issue.
Yeah.
Like Frazier going 1 of 8 today, that really hurt them. And, in times when they kind of needed somebody to step up, he just wasn't the answer necessarily. And I don't think anybody really was, to his credit. Like, I'm not trying to rag on Frazier. I still feel like he's probably their best overall option when it comes to something like this. But I don't know what it is, man, whether it's like just kind of Groundhog Day, they get back out on the road, they miss shots early on, and they kind of get in a rut and feel like, uh-oh, here we go again. My only light at the end of the tunnel from this game specifically is I like the closeout performance from KJ Thomas. I think UTEP has something else with another true freshman under their belt. He finished with 8 points today, and he also contributed 14 minutes of action, but he had a three-pointer as well. So KJ Thomas, I think he's probably the only bright spot that you could take away from today.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. The kid kind of came up when Terrell and Bynum got ejected, but I think he did play well. He came in, he made one of the few three-point shots we even made tonight, so, hats off to him. Is he one of the El Paso local kids as well?
That was not KJ Thomas was not a El Paso kid, but KJ Thomas is a Texas kid, just like Terrell from last year. And Canyon Randall's finest is KJ Thomas, so he had a chance to play at a pretty high level. Canyon Randall out in Amarillo, but a true freshman, man, I feel like he lacks a little bit of like meat on him, but he hangs in games. He's like the actual like facilitator I think they're going to need moving forward. I don't know what kind of role he plays, like with this squad or how many minutes he finds. But sidelines, they're going to have to figure out a bench rotation that works better for them. I'm not throwing the excuse in there that they had 2 guys thrown out who could contribute, although I think having Terrell and Bynum close out the game, probably not a 30-point loss, is probably closer to maybe a 15 or 20-point loss, but still, there's not a lot of good things you're taking away from this matchup right here, sidelines.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Let's hope they look at this loss and, they kind of just rebound from it. That's all we can hope at this point.
Okay, man. I appreciate it, Sidelines. Thanks so much for the phone call, and it's good to talk with you, about your thoughts on some UTEP basketball here as we continue. 915-505-6009. That's how we continue. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and then 600 ESPNElPaso.com, where you could also check out some of the coverage online as we continue. A couple other tweets to get to from Sidelines. He just said it. Actually, this is from Junior at 915 Miner Nation. This loss is terrible. This is just a preview of another mediocre season. Jim Center made a bad hire here. It's time to move on. There's no improvement whatsoever with UTEP basketball. Wow. Yikes right there. Yikes. This is coming in from Tristan Pence. Well, the good news is it's early November, and in the whole configuration of things, the game doesn't mean that much. However, Coach Joe Golding has taken our proud basketball program to a place where UTEP men's basketball is not competitive against mediocre WAC teams. Golding says that he's embarrassed, yet he is one of the highest paid coaches in Conference USA. There is no more excuses. This is year 4, and the Miners have a very talented team. Let's hope this was just a one-off bad game, and the Miners will learn from this disgraceful performance. This is also coming in from Daniel. TBH bro, this is year 4. They don't have an identity at this point. I don't know if Golding is the guy. I know he made the CUSA championship, but I don't know if Golding is it, especially with players fighting and getting ejected in a game. I don't know. It seems like things don't fit on offense. Last point, and then we'll get to Ronnie. This is from Herman Flores. His team's identity was supposed to be hard, all-out defense the entire game, and the offense would come. It happened the first couple of years, but don't really see it anymore. You're right, it's coaching. No discipline, not having the team ready to start the game, and they were down 15-0. There you go. That is a couple points coming in. Switching it quickly over to a point on football. It looks like we're heading to bonus coverage. Looks like we're heading to bonus football. It looks like we might not even have Sal Montes on this program tonight because we're getting a long night of UTEP football. And it's because it's a 28-28 game. And like our very own Zay Galindo reports on 600 ESPN El Paso, he says that it was Amir Boyd Matthews who came up with an interception, Kennesaw State was driving into field goal range. The return gave the Miners a chance to win it on a field goal. Miners will have it around the Kennesaw 38-yard line, and it looks like they're going to go for a field goal right here. Alberto, what are we talking about? You tell me. No, don't show me it. Just talk it out. What happened?
Well, Flaviano's lining up for the kick.
Oh, we're getting a field goal right now.
We're getting a field goal right now.
Okay, 55. No,
it's up.
It's no good. No, it's not. They're not going good. Hey, it's 55 yards. He's not making that.
It's not good.
Yeah, he's not making that one. So
I was about to scream into this mic.
No, there's no way. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. We'll recap UTEP football after the game, but there's no chance we're talking about a walk-off field goal right there of 55 yards. I didn't even give it a shot there. I had to say no chance. So. Let's do it. Ronnie is next. 915-505-6009. As we continue, Ronnie, good afternoon. Good evening, man. What's happening?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Ronnie, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm all right. Same old, I guess.
Give me your thoughts on this game, man.
It's the same old thing. That's why I didn't even call in during the Slow Ross game. I think I said this 2 years ago. We have to get to the point where we're no longer playing the Slow Rosses and the Texas Perryman Basins or whatever it is. We don't need to play those schools. And I don't want to hear nobody wants to come to El Paso. Then go somewhere else, because you do not need to play those schools. It does you absolutely no good. The only stat that we need to look at here actually happened in the Mexico game. They forced 25 turnovers and still lost. Tells you everything you know about this team. This is a Golding special. This is what they do, right? They cause a little chaos and get the team to play with a lot of control at times. They usually are one of the better teams in the country at forcing turnovers, but they don't win games because their offense is what it is, man. It's very dribble heavy. They don't have a lot of skill up front. If you look at what Utah Valley did, they had 3 or 4 guys at 6'5" or bigger. They could put the ball on the floor, could dribble, pass, and shoot, and break the press and get where they wanted to get to. The Miners have never had that type of front court. And that's no knock on Derek Hamilton. His game is what it is. No knock on Kevin Kalu. His game is what it is. But the game has evolved so much now. And anybody who says that Joker isn't the best player in the world is just absolutely crazy, because he is. And that's what you need to win high-level games. Now, you need a guy that can dribble, pass, and shoot. And the bigger he is, the better he is. If Giannis had those skills, he would be one of the best players in the world, the best player in the world, but he doesn't. The game has moved on from just sheer athleticism and just dominating your opponent and intimidating them. You actually got to be able to outskill them and outwill them. And that's where the Miners lack in their recruiting and their creativity of offensive scheming. And it's the same thing. They scored, 60 points? They scored 89. They probably forced more turnovers than they had. So it's like those things matter. And I was hoping that when we lost Jeremy Cox, that would get an assistant coach that could kind of understand that, could bring some value in that, could bring some kids that kind of fit today's game. But yet here we are again. Now we've got a trip to just turn crazy, right, with the little melee there. And then you got to come back. You got to play Texas Perryman Basin. Once again, a game that tells you absolutely nothing about this team. And then you got to wait for them to go to Santa Barbara, who is a pretty good team. They're smacking Portland tonight, who's, assistant coach is Armando, our home, right? So, I mean, this is the same old thing, man. And I don't know if we just need to look at what exactly Golding does. He's a postseason guy, but he's not really a regular season guy. He's not a guy that's going to win 25, 27 games. He's more of a give me a chance, get me to the postseason, and my defense and my team will kind of grind some teams down. But during the regular season, man, he really misses the opportunity to seize on some games. Just think about this. He lost tonight by 29 to Utah Valley, and I don't think Utah Valley is going to do anything in the WAC, right? You'd have been better off suited playing that game at the Movie Center or against Ole Miss, his friend, collecting a check and taking the same type of loss and getting a couple $100,000 to go over there. You'd have been better off suited doing that.
Well, let me ask you this, Ronnie. Why are they so bad against WAC teams? It's not just these 2 seasons when they have the CUSA WAC Challenge. And by the way, there's no chance of getting money either way on this side. This was like a pre-built kind of deal that CUSA agreed on for TV deals and for just non-conference schedule making right there. But you look all the way back to year 1, right? They lose to a team in Southern Utah, and that's a team that was in the basketball classic. I don't think they were in the WAC necessarily, but you look back to last year, they lose to Abilene Christian on the road, and then they come to El Paso and they get killed against Seattle. This year, they go on the road to Utah Valley, they lose 89-60, and then they've got a Tarleton State game that's coming up in December. But why are they so bad against WAC teams? Like, I hear what you're saying, and I understand what you're talking about maybe roster building, maybe not having the best setup, the best personnel altogether, but take all that away. This is still a UTEP team that hung in with New Mexico, who just beat UCLA, and then they go on the road and almost lose by 30 to a WAC team that's kind of mediocre in Utah Valley. Like, make that make sense to me. I think we lost Ronnie right there, but I appreciate the phone call, Ronnie. I appreciate you weighing in on that one. I just don't really know. I don't really know what the the analysis for that one is, or I don't know what the takeaway from that one is right there whatsoever. So, nonetheless, we'll continue. 915-505-6009. Oh boy. Do we have to say it? Do we have to say it?
Tell them what happened. In
your
voice. Tell them in your beautiful voice.
Okay, so Miners had the ball. We're talking football now. We're switching it back over to football. We're doing a little double dip today. It's a little UTEP men's basketball and a little UTEP football. And so we are going to we're gonna break this one down right here. Miners had the ball. They had a chance of a 55-yard field goal by Buzz Flabiano at the buzzer. No chance you're gonna make that one right there. Just in my eyes, there's just really no chance. And I said that right there. There's no chance. And then Buzz Flabiano gets there's a penalty on the play. And then Buzz Flabiano gets another chance at a field goal, another chance to win this game and walk it off. And he misses a 40-yard field goal wide right. Where are we at? Well, it's overtime right now, 28-28, but where's this football program at right now with just how bad special teams were today, Alberto? Let's talk a little UTEP football right here and just get it right here.
It was a horrible, not a horrible night for the UTEP Miners. I think that they're just not able to put together as many scoring drives as they should have. You can't rely on your kicker, and so you kind of gamble in areas where you traditionally were just kick a field goal, and so you walk away with a lot of less points. And at the end of the day, this is the kind of situations that you land yourself in. Punting wasn't there, as wasn't really as sharp as you want it to be. That's kind of been an all season thing.
Okay, how does oh wow. Kennesaw scored right away, by the way. First play in overtime, scores on a 25-yard touchdown. Wow.
It's over.
Wow.
It's over.
Oh, man. Wow. This is insane. So Miner football is down right now. It could be 35-28. This is so bad. This is so bad, guys. I'm like at a loss for words right here. I had to watch the replay over here. I'm watching it live, and yeah, for this UTEP, I mean, we're going to have to hear from UTEP Zay, too, like the closing moments of this game. But, Alberto, I'll bring you back here for this one because I need your thoughts on this. This was probably my most frustrated thing, right? Because, you're hearing this even in the halftime interview from Bob Stoll, former athletic director for UTEP. He's questioning, why don't you just kick field goals when they had it in Kennesaw territory? This was a 7-7 game, and they're going for it on fourth down 2 times. They turned the ball over on downs 2 times inside Kennesaw territory. And then, to their credit, the third drive on their side, they go for it as well, and they make it. They get it on a Shea Smith touchdown. But still, do you reflect back on those and think, well, UTEP could have got those scores and could have got it done on that side?
Yeah, well, you don't go for the field goals because you don't trust your kicker to make them from a distance, right? Unfortunately, your kicker, who has in the past earned himself a scholarship via great kicks and game winners, this season hasn't been as reliable as you've needed him to be. And so you leave points on the board, you leave points out on the field, and you have to gamble on third down, on fourth down, because you're going to walk away with no points, might as well go for it on fourth, right? You're going to get criticized, might as well just go for it on fourth. And that way, in my opinion, the coaches must feel, well, we have things in our control. We may not walk away with any points on 4th and 4, and it may be a turnover on downs, but every fifth attempt, we'll walk away with with the first down or some points.
Well, the Miners are already approaching the goal line situation right now. They're first and goal at the Kennesaw 2-yard line after a 23-yard pass from Skylar Locklear to Kenny Odom. Mm-hmm. Miners should still win this. They have to get this one done at somehow. And again, this is a really bad Kennesaw State team. I've said this once, I'll say it again. This is a team right now that is 0-4 on the road. This is a team right now that has no kind of success on the road whenever they play away from Atlanta. Their only win on the season kind of felt like a little bit of a fluke. Although, give them their credit, they beat Liberty, and it feels more like a fluke than it was a true successful game when it was all said and done. Miners score on a 2-yard rushing touchdown. It was actually a passing touchdown. Skylar Locklear to Kenny Odom. So let's see if they elect to just kick the extra point, send this one into double overtime, or if they end up going for 2. And you have to say that now after missing back-to-back field goals right there for Buzz Flabiano, even though it's just, for confidence purposes right there, Alberto. Your thoughts? Do you go for 2, just try to win it right here, or no question about it? You gotta kick this extra point.
I have to highlight what has happened before in this game already. In one of my tweets, I highlighted the Miners score, and Buzz Flabiano makes the point after attempts, but dings it off of the upright.
Yeah.
Dings it off the upright. The
Yeah.
point after attempt. This isn't even a field goal.
Well,
so let's keep that in mind.
And PAT was good by Buzz
Okay,
Flabiano. It was no question by them. They went for the extra point right away. And now it is headed to double overtime. Wow, we get some bonus football coverage right here on MinerTalk. What a crazy night it's been for both UTEP sports right here, for men's basketball and for football. Let's do this, Alberto. Let's take a timeout right here. When we come back, more of MinerTalk. You want to weigh in? We'll talk men's basketball. We'll talk a little football too. 915-505-6009. That's our telephone number. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X. Listen to us on our free mobile app. It's 600 ESPN El Paso, where you can tune in live and listen to us as well and chat with us in real time. Utah Valley defeated UTEP 89-60. We're presented by Jack in the Box. Big shout out to the District Pub and Kitchen West, the Oscar IDF Agency, New Start Homes, Wind Supply El Paso, and so many other great sponsors here on MinerTalk as we continue. Let's take a timeout right now. When we come back, more MinerTalk as we continue. 600 ESPN El Paso. MinerTalk is back. We're presented by Jack in the Box here on the program. 15 locations located all across El Paso and Las Cruces, and they are open 24/7. Jack in the Box is your perfect place before and after every game. That is Jack in the Box here on MinerTalk as we continue. Oh, boy. Trey Goodman just fumbled the ball in double overtime right now. That was the Miners' possession. They had it all the way down to the Kennesaw 9-yard line. And now this one is currently under review. When it stands, I don't think it's really if. I just saw the replay on my side. When this one stands, Kennesaw will have the ball in prime field position. And wow, Kennesaw State might be coming to the Sun Bowl and might be stealing away a victory from UTEP. Alberto, just initial reactions right here. Can't close out Kennesaw State at home. We're talking obviously UTEP men's basketball MinerTalk here. They had a 30-point loss almost today. It was Utah Valley defeating them 89-60. I thought, how could it get worse today for UTEP athletics? And I thought, okay, great game by the volleyball team, by the way, earlier. So big shout out to them. They're doing everything they need to do to get things done. But we asked it earlier today, and I was thinking to myself, we got it totally wrong. We asked it earlier. Does UTEP sweep? Does football get a win? Basketball loses? Does basketball win and UTEP football loses? Or do both lose? And there were people out there, most of our votes off my poll that I threw out there, most of them said UTEP sweeps. And I actually thought that wasn't far-fetched going into today, thinking, hey, it's the WAC CUSA Challenge for men's basketball. It's a great opportunity for the men's basketball team to get a quality road win, especially in the WAC CUSA Challenge. And then on the flip side, for football, I expected them to win this game. This is Kennesaw State. This is one of the worst teams, not just in Conference USA, one of the worst teams in all college football right now as it stands. They're currently reviewing this fumble right now, so let's see if it ends up standing. But nonetheless, Alberto, just your thoughts. I mean, expectations going into today, and then just the reality that is really hit with this group moving forward.
Yeah, it's going to be I don't want to jinx the Miners. It's hard for me to kind of talk in definitives as the game is still going on. But if the Miners can't pull this one off, it's going to be disappointing because it's another one of those where you were very much in contention. The game was right in front of you. You just didn't attack it properly, and you didn't win the game, right? And I think that's what's going to hurt the Miners most. And you look at the drive chart, and I can't remember the last time the Miners put up this many points. Aside from that victory against the FIU Panthers, it's just been a rough season offensively for the Miners. So when you put up a decent game like this one, Skylar Locklear throws for 300 passing yards. He doesn't have an interception. He does what he does via the running game, as he always does. You kind of expect to win, right?
Yeah, you do. And I would say this, after review, they found out that Goodman's knee was down on the play, so Miners will keep their possession. Whew. They could breathe a sigh of relief right there. And now we will get a chance to see what the football team will do here. Double overtime, 35-35 is the score. Kennesaw State UTEP, and Miners at the 16-yard line facing a 3rd and 13 of Kennesaw State here. Let's see what the Miners do on this play. But going back to men's basketball, all right, let's talk a couple other stats here, and then we'll continue to break down the close to the football game as we continue here on Miner Talk. By the way, if you want to talk anything UTEP, 915-505-6009. That's our telephone number. 600 ESPN El Paso, Twitter and X, and then 600 ESPN El Paso. Free mobile app. You can chat with us on our app in real time as we continue. Miners score on a 16-yard passing touchdown from Skylar Locklear to Kenny Odom. It was an excellent pass by Skylar Locklear, and a great catch, great grab there by Kenny Odom. And by the way, let's just run down the Odom numbers right now. 8 catches, 108 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. Did you start him in fantasy today, Alberto? Because those are some Jamar Chase type of fantasy stats right there for college football.
Yeah, that's a spectacular night. 3 touchdowns. You can't complain. It's not every night you have a game like that.
No, not at all. And now Kennesaw State will have to answer the call. They're going to review this one right here to make sure he had a foot in bounds. It looks like on the replay, it looks like he does have a foot in bounds. So Miners will grab that one. What a catch right there. And yeah, Miners will have the lead here, double overtime. They got to win this one. They got to get this one under their belt, and they got to get this win here when it's all said and done. Miners' offense is staying on the field, by the way. I wonder if they're going to think about going for 2 here on this one. So let's see what happens. Going back to basketball, I just mentioned it right here. Let's talk a little bit more stats. Miners shot 26% from the floor tonight. 15 of 57 here. And that was probably one of the biggest woes that you're going to find today from the UTEP stats. They also shot 33% from beyond the arc, 5 of 15. Only 15 three-point attempts from the Miners tonight. They shoot 86% from the charity stripe, which is exactly what you want from this squad moving forward. And I also really, I really look at that rebounding margin, man. 44-28. 44-28 right there. And we said it, and Joe Golding even said it, that rebounding is one of those things that they're going to have to figure out at some point. They go on the road against New Mexico. They get out-rebounded by 20+, and then tonight, Alberto, they get out-rebounded by 16. I don't know where they're going to find their rebounding moving forward. I think that's going to be a concern here for this squad and how they really discover that.
Yeah, we already had one caller kind of address that issue, and I'm sure that throughout the season we're going to have more callers continuously address it if this continues to happen. The instance where the Miners are outboarded by a lot, and they lose the game, and Miner fans are disappointed, we're going to have a lot of calls where Miner fans are going to be demanding more play with bigs, and where you demand more power in the paint, more you demand the control there. But unfortunately, I don't really see that in the future for the Miners. But we'll see what's going to happen. It's going to be annoying if the Miners can't figure out how to get boards, because it's going to be a long season.
Yeah, I'm with you there completely. Miners go for two here after they score a touchdown with Skylar Locklear, and Skylar Locklear is flushed out of the pocket, but he ends up hitting Javon Jackson for the 2-point conversion. Wow, what a play right there. And yeah, I like it a lot. I like that one big time right there by the UTEP football squad. Looks like this UTEP football team should hang on right here when it's all said and done. That was incredible right there. If they made those lucky plays happen, maybe luck is swinging back UTEP football's way, Alberto. They are able to cap it off. It was a 16-yard touchdown pass from Skylar Locklear to Kenny Odom. 2-point conversion is good. It looked like Skylar Locklear was running for his life. It looked like he was just about to be sacked. And then he flinged it over to Javon Jackson, and they hit that 2-point conversion. 43-35. Is luck on UTEP's side right here to close this game out?
I mean, after what I just saw Skylar Locklear do, and the way he scrambled, and he finds and he shoots out to the right side, and he still finds a guy to the kind of towards the middle of the field, I think the Miners definitely have a little luck on their side. So I'm on the Miners side right now.
Okay, Kennesaw State now has the ball. It's double overtime action, and UTEP leads 43-35. By the way, it looks cold over there at the Sun Bowl. How chilly was it to close that game out?
Well, that's the thing. When the sun was beating down, obviously, like we had discussed earlier, you don't really feel it. But as soon as that sun sets, or you're in the shade, or that wind really starts to hit you, you really start to feel it. Right now, the weather app has it at 57 degrees, but I bet you with the wind chill, it probably feels like it's freezing down there, especially since the sun is the sun is completely down right now. It's 5:43, and the sun is completely down. They are freezing over there, especially people who are not prepared, didn't take a jacket.
Hey, I apologize to those who are listening to the podcast right now wondering, well, we already know the result of this right here. Can you please talk more basketball? Yes, we will talk more basketball right now. I want to talk some highlights from UTEP's players, okay, and just kind of go player by player. Corey Camper Jr. struggled mightily shooting the ball today. 7 points. He was 1 of 7 from the floor. He had 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 30 minutes of action for Corey Camper Jr. today in this game. He had 2 steals, 2 blocks. So, Alberto, he's doing things on the defensive side that make you impressed with Corey Camper Jr., but my issue is, I don't think he took enough shot attempts. I think they're going to need more shot attempts from him, especially in the second half. Like, look, they didn't have Ahmad Bynum for the majority of the second half. They also lost David Terrell Jr. to, obviously, he got thrown out as well. But for Corey Camper Jr., he's got to shoot more, he's got to take more shot attempts, in my opinion. I think he's probably one of their better scorers, but only 1 of 7 today, a turnover, 30 minutes of action. You're not going to find anybody on this team who averaged more than 30 minutes tonight, and he only, attempts 7 shots. He's got to be more aggressive in these games.
Yeah, he definitely needs to be more aggressive, especially if he wants to develop himself into something a little more aggressive, down the line. And I think that if you want to save something from his performance today, I'd save, his 4 of 4 from the charity stripe. You take what they give you. So, I mean, yeah, it wasn't a good performance, but when they were giving away points, he took those. He goes 4 for 4.
Yeah, I like the free throw shooting across the board, too. I mean, Otis Frazier was 9 for 9 from the charity stripe, but 11 points. So, he's only getting 1 field goal out of that. Otis Frazier III was just one of the top guys. He was definitely one of the top guys that you're going to find on this team across the roster. And just struggled big time today as well. 11 points, 28 minutes. That's another thing. He was in foul trouble early in this game. 28 minutes of action. He did have 3 steals. He was plus 12 in efficiency. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Otis Frazier III, he also struggled today as well. he also disappeared. I mean, the Miners needed him in certain key situations, but they weren't able to have him because of what ended up happening, with just not having or just having some foul trouble in this game. Going over to another player on this squad, David Terrell Jr., who ended up getting thrown out, tossed out of this matchup. 5 points, 2 of 3 from the field. He was 1 of 2 from the charity stripe. A rebound in this one. He had, he actually racked up 3 fouls right before he was tossed. So he was dealing with a bit of foul trouble as well. He didn't have a steal. He didn't have a block, which feels uncharacteristic to David Terrell Jr. and knowing how good he is defensively. And so, David Terrell Jr. struggles in this one as well. 5 points. I'm saying struggles for a lot of these players, and that's just the reality. Kevin Kalu down low, 21 minutes tonight, 3 points, 8 rebounds overall, a block, when it was all said and done. And I think they're going to need more from Kevin Kalu when it comes to scoring down low in the paint, Alberto. A lot of people always call in, and they always talk about, UTEP needs more from their bigs, more from their bigs, more from their bigs. And I would just say it's law of averages in my thoughts. Like, when you only have one big out there, it's a lot to put on one guy. And I don't think they need to change their philosophy necessarily. I like their 4-guard approach, but I don't necessarily love how they're using some of their bigs in these key situations. I don't know if it means to run more plays through Kevin Kalu or if it means to create more opportunities. I don't really know what that really means.
Yeah, I think that the Miners are in a difficult predicament just because of the personnel that they run, that a lot of schools know the guys that they play and their physique, so they attack it with size, and that kind of puts the Miners in a difficult situation. So it'll really be interesting to see how they address this going forward, but I don't know. I don't think they're going to change the way they attack these games moving forward. Just off of this game alone, if you look at the numbers, just take a step back, they just came out really cold, right? Is it just one of those things from last year where you have road woes and you weren't shooting well, or is it something that is it a bigger issue? So I'm not sure. It's kind of really hard to tell what's going on still here for the UTEP men's basketball.
915-505-6009. That's our telephone number. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and 600 ESPNElPaso.com as we continue. We got a line ringing in. Somebody wants to talk a little UTEP. We'll do it right here as we continue. Football game still going on. Kennesaw State facing a 2nd and goal situation from the UTEP. I believe it's their 10-yard line. So let's see what Kennesaw can do here on this drive. Miners are up in football 43-35, double overtime. We'll bring you a little bonus coverage of Miner Talk after talking some UTEP hoops, and then we'll also sprinkle it in with this football squad and the result when it's all said and done. So let's keep it moving. 915-505-6009. Before we get to Augustine, a couple other players I just want to mention. Players that average or who played more than 10 minutes in this game. Baylor Hebb, 0 for 1. He had 2 assists in this game, 2 fouls, and a turnover. You look at Ahmad Bynum in this one, 9 points. At one point in this game, Alberto, he felt like their only offensive option. It really was the case. I mean, he hit a 3. He was 3 of 7 from the field, but the punch that he threw in the second half threw him out of the game, and he had a steal on defense. But Ahmad Bynum was definitely not the player he was back on Monday when they hosted Sul Ross, albeit against an inferior opponent. It's just Ahmad Bynum getting basically thrown out of this game when it was all said and done and not able to close it out here for the Miners in this game. If he had played the whole game, I think UTEP would have kept it a little bit closer, but still would have been maybe like a 15 to 20, 25-point loss when it was all said and done. I don't think they lose by 30 if they still have Bynum and Terrell, how this ended up shaking out. The other one was felt disappointing for me was Trey Horton. No points. He was 0 for 5 from the field and 0 for 4 from beyond the arc. He contributed with 2 rebounds in this game. He had 4 fouls. That's just not the efficiency you want to see from a returning player in Trey Horton, who shot lights out on Monday, Alberto, off the bench. So you can't make a lot of excuses for somebody like that.
No, you can't. Not for guys who are returning to the squad and have played D1 basketball. But for Ahmad Bynum, he showed a different kind of fire today. Yeah, he wasn't lights out from shooting lights out like he was last game, but he was still a great player, and I think that he'll develop into being the difference maker that he was in that first game. We just have to give him time, and he'll become that. But apart from that, guys who are returning, I mean, yeah, it is disappointing to see him come out and shoot poorly from the field as they did last year. You think they would have just put in the effort to try to improve that. But also, it's basketball. That's what I really hate about the sport of basketball, is it's really hit or miss. Sometimes the rim just hates you, and the shots don't sink.
No, they don't, and it's like it's a hot or cold type of scenario. So sometimes they're able to do it, sometimes they're not, and yeah, it's the reality right there. Miners will hang on; they hold on, and they beat Kennesaw State in football. 43-35 is the finish for UTEP football. Double overtime. That's what they had to do in order to win this one right here. And for the Miners, they get it done. Double overtime, and it's looking like it's done right here. I know there's some confusion on the sidelines with the refs, but I think this one is just about to hit final right here. As wow, they're going to have to go back, and I guess there's somebody who wants a review on this one right here, thinking that it may have been a score on fourth down. I don't think that's the case. I think UTEP wins it. It is final. Yep, that's it. UTEP football defeats Kennesaw State. Double overtime, 43-35. Initial reactions and responses to that one there, Alberto.
An expected win by the Miners, right?
Yes,
you were favored coming in. It was a home match against a team that your coach beat 2 years ago when he was at his old school, but also it's a team that's barely entering your conference, so you definitely expect to win. You don't expect it to go down to the wire like this, but a great performance by Skylar Locklear. My hat's off to him. A great performance off of the injury. You can't really you can't talk about that enough. That's extremely hard to just kind of pick things up where they left off and not skip a beat. That's extremely hard. So my hat's off to him, and let's see what the Miners can put together for Tennessee so that they can actually try to put a game together for New Mexico State.
Yeah, I mean, the Tennessee game is just, in my eyes, it's going to be that next loss for the squad. But now the Miners have improved to 2-8. They had to win one of these three games. It was just way too much for this squad right here. So UTEP football gets the win, and we'll talk more for UTEP basketball. But back on the phone lines we go, 915-505-6009. The calls will start coming in here as football just finished out. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X. And Augustine is next up on the phone lines. Augustine, good evening. What's going on?
Hey, Jen, good afternoon, Alberto, or good evening. With this hour change, I have no idea what it is right now to say good evening. Just gets dark way too soon. But
Agreed.
Adrian, I have a very direct question for you, and I want an honest answer.
Okay, give it to me. I'll give you honesty.
UTEP has good players. UTEP has a good coaching. I'm talking about basketball, by the way. And what they lack is team character, because it's like they get lost. If they get a bucket on them, it's like their shoulders go down, and they just have no character. And Frazier should be putting lights out on anybody at this level. And that's a fact. Is it just the lack of character, the lack of team cohesion? Because they're good players. Golding is a good coach. What the hell?
Wow. Well, I'll ask you this. Before I answer your question, I want to ask you, because you're judging the character right here. Do you agree that UTEP, maybe you say what they lack? Do they lack a little bit of size in your eyes?
They do lack a little bit of size, but the thing is, they got a wussy 7-footer sitting down that won't do anything, because that's a scholarship that went to the wastebasket with the kind of, he just posts, is looking down. He never looks up. He's got more flat than me. What the hell?
Are you talking about Kalu, or are you talking about Hamilton?
Oh gosh, I give the one with the big wingspan that doing nothing all the time.
Well, regardless of who you're talking about, I hear your point right now. I'll say I don't think it's necessarily a character thing. It might be a Golding thing though, where they just struggle on the road, and they've never really shown Augustine in a season that they can win consistently on the road. I think that's been one of their biggest issues here. And so as far as like the character, no, I don't necessarily think it's like a character issue right there. It may be a mental issue if you're thinking that this squad can't win on the road or struggles to win on the road. They had so much emphasis.
Is it just saying, hey, get with it, let's win on the road, and let's do it? I mean, grow a backbone. And it's not mostly, and it's, I understand everybody's going to say on Golding and all this, but it's the players who are really failing on the court. I mean, and let's be honest about this. I mean, for a player to throw a punch, I mean, come on.
So you didn't like that. So that for you, that one's something hard to escape right there.
Yeah, I mean, whatever happens on the court, you don't throw a punch. Whatever happens in there, I mean, it's basketball. You play at it, and you grow a backbone, and you try to do better than the other person. You don't go after another player like that. And those centers, come on, go get the frickin' ball. Go get the ball. At least do something besides putting screens that people just walk around. And then it's just frustrating to have a team that actually has some talent on there and them just pouting all over the court.
Yeah. I hear you, man. Hey, I appreciate the phone call, Augustine. Thanks for weighing in. I would say that the fight for some people, it's not going to sit well. It's going to be just like Augustine. They're going to think that, hey, this just does not sit well with me whatsoever. They just don't necessarily like the fact that they fought in the game, or that they had a scuffle. I wouldn't necessarily call it a fight. If you really watched it and you saw what ended up happening, didn't really feel like that. It was a skirmish. Didn't really feel like it was too crazy right there, but nonetheless, they throw out both of the players in David Terrell Jr. and Ahmad Bynum. Do I feel like it was a lapse of judgment? Yes. Do I fault the players and I question their character? Not at all. I know both Ahmad Bynum and David Terrell on and off the court, and they're not those types of guys. It was a David Terrell moment where I think he was trying to be a leader and saying that, like, hey, I want to stand up for my guys. They just took it too far, and as a result, they had to live with the consequences. Now the Miners are going to have to readjust and just understand it's part of the maturing process too. You have a junior in Ahmad Bynum, and you have a sophomore and David Terrell Jr. So a bit of maturity stuff for both those guys, but you hope if you're a UTEP fan that this is a learning moment and not a reflection of the character, like some fans will argue and say that, hey, this is a reflection no matter how you try to spin it. So good phone call there by Augustine. Appreciate that. Our telephone number, 915-505-6009. We will reset. We're talking about a UTEP win in double overtime, 43-35 against Kennesaw State. You want to talk about that one, we can do it. And we're also talking about a UTEP men's basketball loss. 89-60, Utah Valley defeats UTEP in men's basketball. 915-505-6009. We're presented by Jack in the Box, by the way, the perfect spot before and after every game. They're open 24/7, 365 here in El Paso. 15 locations here in El Paso and in Las Cruces. That is Jack in the Box here on Miner Talk. Also want to mention tomorrow is Kayla Thornton Day. Morehead State comes to town. Women's basketball in action. And Kayla Thornton, the all-time great for women's basketball, the WNBA champion with the New York Liberty, she will be honored in that game. See her jersey be hung in the rafters. That is one you don't want to miss tomorrow night out at the Dawn, and it is Kayla Thornton Day across the city of El Paso, not just with UTEP basketball. So great stuff right there for women's basketball. We'll talk a little bit more about them here as we continue here on Miner Talk. 915-505-6009. We'll take a break right now. When we come back, more of Miner Talk as we continue right here on 600 ESPN El Paso. All right, welcome back. Miner Talk continues along with Alberto Reta. I'm Adrian Broadus. UTEP Zay, that is Zay Galindo, will be joining us here in just a little bit. Sal Montes, too, he's finishing up the production of KLAQ's coverage of UTEP football on 95.5 KLAQ. We're right here, Miner Talk continuing, 600 ESPN El Paso. If you got thoughts, if you want to talk some UTEP football, give us a call. If you were there, give us a call, 915-505-6009. Walk us through the emotions, the two missed field goals by Buzz Flabiano that ended up sending this one essentially to overtime, the ups and downs in overtimes, and how this one ended up. Give us a call if you want to talk about it, 915-505-6009. Miner Talk just cooking up here, 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and 600 ESPNElPaso.com. Any other takeaways here for football, Alberto? Just some initial thoughts from this squad.
Well, just glad they were able to come away with the points here, or with the win, and you're really pleased with the amount of yards or the offensive performance in total in general, as the Miners put up total yards 453 yards of total offense, 120 rush yards, 333 pass yards. So yeah, it was definitely a great night for the Miners. You minimize your turnovers, only I believe one fumble for the Miners. So yeah, it was a great night. They forced a turnover and they walk away with the win.
I don't know if we can call anything great about tonight. Do you calling anything great about tonight? Because I don't know. I think this is just one of those you eke out. And I expected them to win this one. I predicted them to have this one under their belt, and they had almost 3, 4, 5 different instances where they could have coughed this one up when it was all said and done on the football side of things. 43-35 in double overtime. It took a double overtime finish in order to beat Kennesaw State.
Yeah, this Kennesaw State team has a lot of fight in them, but yeah, I mean, the Miners had a plenty of opportunities to put it away in regulation. They just didn't do it when they had the right opportunities in that third and fourth quarter. They didn't walk away with nearly as many points as they should have, and so that was extremely, extremely disappointing. They open up the second half with a touchdown, and then get one again 3 drives later, but then dry up for the fourth quarter, and that's really where Kennesaw State's able to mount a little comeback and apply pressure on you.
915-505-6009 as we continue. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter next, and 600 ESPNElPaso.com. Let's keep it moving here on the program. We've got a couple tweets to get to as well. Want to also give a big shout out, like we mentioned, to Sal Montes and also Zay Galindo. Both of them have been covering this UTEP double dip. We don't call it a double header. It's a double dip right here because we've got both men's basketball and UTEP football to talk about here on the program. If you want to discuss it here with us, let's do it. 915-505-6009. To recap things, if you are just getting in your car and you just watched that UTEP football game and you got a chance to witness a double overtime victory, well, on the men's basketball side, Miners struggled mightily. They got defeated badly by Utah Valley today. It was 89-60. That was the final score on the road for this men's basketball squad. Now they'll have to, regroup next week. They've got a team in UT Permian Basin who's not in the D1 level. They're coming to town. They'll be at the Dawn, to face the Miners, and the Miners will have to regroup for that one. But the Miners won't have another big challenge on the road until they play UC Santa Barbara, and that's just the reality for this squad right here moving forward. So our telephone number, 915-505-6009, 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and 600 ESPNElPaso.com. Hey, by the way, next week, I shouldn't say next week, it's 2 weeks from now, the Miners football team has Tennessee. Yes, Tennessee, not Middle Tennessee. This is Tennessee. The Volunteers are on the road. An SEC opponent will be their second to last game of the season. Man, Alberto, this is just a tough one right there. What do you even say for UTEP football going into that game against the Volunteers?
Yeah, that one's brutal. I don't really know how you attack that as a coach. So it'll be interesting to see how both sides come out, right? Even as Tennessee, how do you attack that from your angle? Is you're playing a team who has 2 wins, just picked up their second win, and they're going into your house and underdogs, right? Violent underdogs. You still need to put a whooping on them. So what are you going to do, right? So it'll be interesting to see what goes down out there in Tennessee. But if I'm the Miners, I don't know how I would feel as a player going out there all the way to Tennessee to get my butt handed to me, and then I still have to finish out the season against the New Mexico State Aggies.
Let's go back to Twitter next. We got a bunch of comments coming in now. Everybody chiming in now that the football game is over, and we've got a chance to turn the page over from men's basketball over to football, although we can still talk some men's basketball thoughts as we continue. Next up is Herman Flores. Actually, let's do sad UTEP fan. This is coming. Actually, let's do this one. This is from Orange Cubed. This is coming from UTEP men's basketball. Coach needs to be fired. UTEP is mediocre to the core, and take Jim Center with him. Man, that's pretty brutal right there. This is from JK. All due respect to Buzz Flabiano, but UTEP needs a new kicker. They're just not good enough, or he is just not good enough for this level. Augustine says, all I have to say today is LOL. Clearwater. This game was freaking embarrassing. Joe Golding needs to pull a Tim Floyd and realize he just doesn't have it and resign. What a shameful performance from this team. Such a fraud this Golding guy is. Man, that's brutal. This is just game one, really, right here for UTEP fans. So I'm surprised to hear that kind of response, or some vitriol, I should say, after just one game. I get it. It was a really bad loss, and even if you want to say that UTEP's in a bad place right now, I think that would be a stretch. But to say firing and say all that kind of stuff, just remember where fans were before this season even started. So there you go. Pinky is chiming in on our app. He is saying UTEP women's volleyball got another sweep. Hey, good point there, Pinky. I appreciate your thoughts right there, and appreciate you chiming into the app. And yeah, you're right. Volleyball has been excellent, really, in full swing on their season and how they're closing out the year for themselves. Clearwater chiming in. This football game was wild. What a relief to pull this one out. Kudos to the defense for the first half and the offense in the second half onward. Got to put it together, keep grinding, and beat New Mexico State in 3 weeks. Picks up. Next up is Herman Flores saying, we want Tennessee. This is coming in from Quinn Dowse. If we lost, I was going to maybe be on the Scotty being out committee. Wow. I wouldn't be on that committee, Quinn, even if it's just one game. I mean, even if it's just one season, even if you lose a really bad game like that. And if they lost tonight, I would say that's 3 bad losses in a row, knowing that I thought they should have won at Louisiana Tech, knowing that they should have beat Middle Tennessee last week for sure, and thinking that tonight, the way it was just a kind of a roller coaster type of matchup, if they would have lost that one, that would have just been really tough when it was all said and done. But they pulled it out, and they got the win. So Miners get the win for football at home, double overtime, 43-35 is the finish for UTEP football. If you want to talk about it, 915-505-6009. Tristan Pence chimes in on the program. Every win matters for this young football team. Congrats to the seniors and Coach Scotty Walden. Skylar Locklear had an excellent game. If he hadn't been injured in the La Tech game, the Miners could have 4 wins. Miners need to focus on Aggie game like it's a bowl game. This is coming in from Ben at Ben Devil 99. A great FCS game this was. That's what he had to say. Going back to Tristan's point, Alberto, it's a great point. He was saying that it's an interesting point because he's saying if Locklear had played and not been injured in the La Tech game, you could say that was the real disgusting cheap shot that he took and had that concussion. He was forced out of the next game, which was Middle Tennessee. If Skylar Locklear closes out that game, do you feel like UTEP wins at La Tech? Yes or no on that side?
Yeah, you have to say yes. You have your starter. You expect them to win the close games with their starter. That's just the standard that I hold them to, unfortunately. But you don't etch those could have been wins as wins, right? You lost that game. You didn't almost win it. You lost it.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it as well. I would say, all right, let me ask you this, though. Do you feel like if they have Skylar Locklear for Middle Tennessee, they also win? So you agree with Tristan saying it's 4 wins instead of 2 right here at this point of the season?
I don't think you necessarily outright just beat Middle Tennessee just because you have Skylar Locklear, but I think you definitely move the needle in that direction where you help yourself win the game, right? Your Skylar Locklear is your guy for a reason, so I do think he would have put the Miners in a better position to win than the other guys did. Not to discredit what they did, but he is Skylar Locklear, and I believe in what he can do.
Okay. Herman Flores says, Walden, the quote-unquote offensive genius, almost lost the game by going with a run right up the middle after the 2-minute timeout on 3rd and 4 with a chance to ice the game. Then he called a timeout right after, only to go with a punt play again. There's a lot of points from on there where you're going to pinpoint some of the mismanagement late in the game. You could pinpoint that one. You could also say, hey, should UTEP have just gone for 2? Should they have just done that instead? But no, nonetheless, they were able to get it done. And they got it done on defense. You can really give the defense some credit in the way that they were able to close that one out. Kennesaw drove it all the way inside goal-to-go territory, and the Miners had 4 stops in a row to win this game. Justin at 97 bread. UTEP versus Kennesaw State was a roller coaster of emotions. I'm just happy the Miners came out with the win tonight. Hashtag Miner Nation, hashtag MinerTalk. Next up, this is from Josh Puga. UTEP should have gone for 2 right away if they scored. And I agreed with that. That was out of overtime. I think that was the first overtime. I was thinking the same thing. I was actually worried about Buzz Flabiano's confidence going into that overtime period, Alberto. And I really feel like we've been on this all season long, man. It's not like, it's hit or miss with Buzz Flabiano. He just is who he is. In big game situation moments or big situation moments like you saw at the end of regulation, just take us back to that, right? Because Miners have a chance to go for a 55-yard field goal. They do it, and they miss it. Buzz Flabiano misses that, but it's a 15-yard penalty against Kennesaw State that moves UTEP up. That ends up being a 40-yard field goal or close to a 40-yard field goal for Buzz Flabiano, and he shanks it left. He misses it at the end of regulation. This shouldn't be a surprise. Like this is who he is right there at kicker.
Yeah, he is who he is. He showed signs last season of being a little more consistent, but definitely he can make the 40-plus yarders. So he has it in him. It's just that he has to pull it out, and he doesn't always do that. And you can't really blame him. Kicking is extremely hard. I feel for the guy. I can't even imagine what's going through his head when he has to trot out there and he's getting iced by the opposing team, because they did that. Kennesaw State tries to ice him right before that crucial kick to win the game that he misses. So yeah, it's definitely a mind game situation. You definitely have to feel for him.
Wow. Okay. So Lucamotive Miner just texted into the program. Thanks for listening to those people who are just jumping in their car after UTEP football, and they're probably wondering what happened to men's basketball. Men's basketball today lost. Utah Valley won 89-60. We've been on here for Miner Talk about an hour and a half already here on the program. And just to sum up the Utah Valley game, okay? So Utah Valley went up 15-0 in the early first half, right? 15-0. UTEP rallied back. It was an 18-10 game in the first half. Then Utah Valley started to distance themselves in the first half. It was just ugly. Like, UTEP wasn't playing great defense, and then on the flip side, offensively, couldn't get a bucket to fall. But at the break, they were down 43-28, and I was thinking, all right, UTEP just needs to string along a couple stops. They need somebody to get hot from beyond the arc in the second half, and I feel like that was just too much to ask for this basketball squad. They just didn't have that in them in the second half. In the second half, they came out flat, and they didn't really cut. Like, Utah Valley started to distance themselves. It was a 20-point game for the majority of the second half. Then right around, I would say, like the 12-minute mark, there ends up being a scuffle between players of UTEP and players of Utah Valley. For men's basketball, David Terrell Jr. is thrown out, Ahmad Bynum is thrown out, and then 3 players from Utah Valley are thrown out. We can debate all day whether or not these guys should have been thrown out of the game, but it really hurt UTEP's momentum. They had to shorten their bench, shorten their rotation. We're getting a lot of production from their guys. You're seeing guys like Antoine Holmes, who's a Chapin graduate walk-on, playing some minutes to close out the game, and even KJ Thomas. They were so out of this game late in this matchup. And yeah, Utah Valley just piled it on UTEP in the end. If I had to pinpoint one specific issue with UTEP tonight, it's, I would actually have to say 2. It's the shooting. They didn't have any confidence in their shot. 26% from the field, 5 of 15 scoring on their side. And then when it came to their rebounding margin, they were minus 16. Utah Valley won the rebound margin 44-28 against UTEP. So Miners will need to do some soul searching. We called it earlier for those people who are barely tuning into the program and wondering what happened with men's basketball. We are calling this one right here maybe the worst non-conference loss in the Golding era. Last year, we pointed out that Loyola Marymount beat UTEP. I think it was by 20 when it was all said and done, 67-47 last year. That felt like a gut punch, but this one right here feels like whoa, what happened? I mean, all off-season long, they talked about how this team wants to be a better road team. So, yeah, for some fans, they're just going to say, well, this could be the anomaly. This could be the time where UTEP looks inward on the men's basketball side and says, hey, this is a one-off loss. They're not going to do this again. On the flip side, UTEP has UC Santa Barbara. They have the Ball Dogs Classic to close out this month at San Jose State, at Long Beach State, versus San Jose State, versus Long Beach State, and versus UNC Greensboro in Las Vegas. That's a 3-day stretch, the 25th through the 27th. Then they have the home game against Seattle. That's not going to be easy. A road game against Louisville, not easy. And a home game against Tarleton State. Not easy. That's all before they play Jackson State in the Westar Don Haskins Sun Bowl Invitational on Friday, December 20th. So am I concerned? Not necessarily. But will I be concerned if things don't change or if they don't improve against UC Santa Barbara? Yes. Frankly, yes. I get it. This basketball team will only judge them on how they play in March. And this is a one-bid league, so all that matters is getting hot in the CUSA tournament. I get all of that. But, with this squad, you got to put things together to give yourself momentum to going into conference play. You can't just be wondering or soul-searching, wondering what happened if you're midway into this non-conference slate and scratching your head left and right. So there we go. 915-505-6009. A lot of tweets to get to. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and 600 ESPN El Paso on our app. Speaking of our app, UTEP gets into the program saying, long season ahead. It's about being right when it matters. Get it out of the way now and get better for UTEP men's basketball. Good stuff there. I like it. Let's go over to more on Twitter and X. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X. This is actually King Eric for basketball. That was just embarrassing to come out and go down 15. Just terrible. I don't care who it is. They should never be that should never be the case. Luckily, it's only the second game, so there's time to improve. But so far, not a good start to the season. And then he also follows it up by saying, as for football, it's nice to see Skylar come back and have a great game. I feel the defense took a little step back, but congrats on win number 2. ShoeFan12 posts this into the program. Great job, Miners. So nice to see their hard work pay off on the seniors' last home game. The morale booster of a win for this young football team cannot be overstated. The fans were going crazy during the overtimes. It was fun to watch. Yeah, I was hearing it was a great atmosphere. So good stuff there, Shoe Fan. This is coming in from Quinn. This game proves to me that this team is a pretty good FCS team, which is no surprise when it's built with FCS players. Wow. Ricky Long. In the red zone, UTEP went for it on 4th down twice, only to get 0 points in the first half. Knowing the offense is not that good, the coaches should have kicked the field goals, not just wait to send the kicker to try to make a 55-yarder with the pressure to win the game. Always take the points. Did you like the aggressive plays? Because we go both ways, man. We can't be unfair. We have to go both ways, Alberto. At some points we say, oh, they're not being aggressive enough. And then at other times we're saying, wait, you're way too aggressive. What are you doing? Just take the points. So where do we meet in the middle with all of this?
Yeah, well, look, the Miner coaching staff is put in a difficult situation due to their kicking situation, right? They can't just every single time go out there and kick the points because, well, they don't always have the leg to do so, right? So let's talk about those 2 turnover on downs. They were inside the red zone or inside enemy territory, and they just don't even trot out the kicker. So I do agree with it. Not even, like I said earlier, would you rather miss a kick or would you rather go for it and have the ball in your hands and truly be kind of the ruler of your own destiny?
I mean, that's a good point as well, right? Because then you dictate what ends up happening. Then you show what your team is truly made of, or what kind of mentality, philosophy you want to have moving forward. So, yeah, I hear your point. I don't know. It's a great point that Ricky Long brings up here on the program as we continue. 915-505-6009 as we continue. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and 600 ESPN El Paso on our free mobile app. Alfonso Frias. Not the prettiest of wins, but the Miners showed tons of heart, and they didn't give up. I know this season didn't go as many expected, but I respect the fact that the team isn't rolling over late in the season. I respect that too. I do. I mean, I think that for UTEP, having having a win here, although I expected it, I think it needed to happen for this team for morale points, or for any of those kind of things that you want to bring up. And I do agree that this is something that you can build upon with a young squad. And where this helps as far as younger players and helping them mature is guys like Skylar Locklear. I guess my biggest issue with this offense, Alberto, is that I thought he had an excellent game. Skylar Locklear played great, but not allowing him to throw a lot in the second half, is that maybe one of the issues that you had with this group? To close out the game, I'll just give you this stat right here. How about this? To close out the game, Skylar Locklear completed 9 straight passes, including 2 touchdown passes, both to Kenny Odom, to close this one out.
Yeah, when it mattered most, he was there and he delivered with no errors. So that's huge on his part, and you really have to commend that. And you have to keep going to him, right? If he's hot, keep going to him. And I hope they continue with that in the Tennessee game, at least for the first quarter and a half, and then for the New Mexico game.
When do you remember the last time a UTEP quarterback had these stats? Just take the player away, right? When's the last time a player like this had these stats? 28 of 33 for Skylar Locklear. 327 through the air, 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions, an 85% completion rating, and his QBR was 208.1. I mean, this guy was like, this is maybe one of the best quarterback performances single game that you can see. Forget the team that they're playing, right? Just for a second. Just forget about Kennesaw State and just take Skylar Locklear right here, who has received a lot of criticism and who is also coming off that concussion. Just the fact that he came out with that gutsy performance, what does that tell you about his abilities right there?
I mean that he's extremely sharp, and when it matters most, he won't fail you. So you really need to continue to go to him to finish out the season, right? It's kind of disappointing that you find this kind of mojo towards the end of the season, but I think that New Mexico game, you have to attack it as a completely winnable game, and you have to look at it as what it is, right? Your first opportunity to win a road game as a head coach if you're Scotty Walden, right? So look, you look at the stats, you pull up the stats of the final, the fourth quarter and the overtime, and in the fourth quarter, Skylar Locklear is 5 for 5, and in the overtime, he is 5 for 5. So 5 completions on 5 attempts in both the fourth quarter and in overtime. So he averaged 9.3 yards in overtime and 6.1 yards.
Wow.
Yeah, in the fourth quarter. So yeah, in crunch time, he was there and he was big.
You know, I have to do the digging right now to see some career highs for some previous UTEP quarterbacks, just to throw it for comparison, because, again, Skylar Locklear finishes with 327 through the air. I want to go back and look at some of the 300 passing yard performances from, like, the likes of Gavin Hardison, because, last year he didn't have a game where he threw for more than 300. The year before that was the 2022 season in the fall. In that season right there, he had one game where he threw over 300 yards. It was a loss to Louisiana Tech on the road. He was 23 of 51. That is less than a 50% completion rating for the Miners, and he had 320 passing yards. Yeah, he did have 2 touchdown passes, but 3 interceptions. So, again, to put it in perspective and what kind of performance Skylar had tonight, 28 of 33, 327 through the air, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. So I look back on that year where the Miners went to a bowl game under Gavin Hardison, who's played every single game for the Miners that season right there. He had one game where he hit that. Actually, he had 2 games where he hit over 300 passing yards. One of them was it was at Florida Atlantic. The Miners lost this game 23 of 46 through the air. That's 50% completion rating. 327 through the air, 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. And then another game, this was his season, or actually I would say this is his career high. Gavin Hardison was 23 of 35. That's a 65% completion rating right there. He was 366 yards through the air, 2 touchdown passes, 1 interception, a QBR of 166. Alberto, I think this performance right here from Skylar Locklear, in my eyes, I think it supersedes any of these from Hardison. A single game performance. I think you can look at his career and say, Gavin gave UTEP what they needed at the quarterback spot, I guess. But as far as a single game performance, I'm tipping my hat off in a significant way right here by Skylar Locklear in all those numbers that we're just reeling off right there. I think we've got to hammer this home. What a performance by the sophomore quarterback.
Yeah, phenomenal performance, and I think it only is improved, or its magnitude is increased because of the fact that he's coming off that huge hit from the Louisiana Tech game. So I think that, in my opinion, or at least just only for me, kind of makes this that much bigger, or the moment a little bit bigger for him, because he's coming back from a huge hit. He's coming back from facing a whole bunch of adversity with a concussion like that. There was no guarantee that he was going to even return for the season. So the fact that he has a game like this, caps it off with the win, you got to love that.
Yeah, you do. You really do. I totally am with you on that. 915-505-6009. That's our telephone number. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and 600 ESPNElPaso.com. Little Badger tweets into the program with a little bit of a call out, and I agree with him. Y'all called me crazy for having the win total at 2.5 a couple weeks ago. Are we taking the over now? Hashtag MinerTalk. Little Badger, this is a great point right by you. Miners have definitely the opportunity to beat New Mexico State on the road. New Mexico State's bad, man. They've got a tough bit of their schedule right here. They're facing a really tough stretch right here. They're down 31-21 at home against Western Kentucky here in the fourth quarter. We'll see what ends up happening in this one. I think Western holds on and wins this one right here pretty handily. But for New Mexico State, how about this, Alberto? I'll give you their schedule, okay? At Texas A&M next week. Wow. That's a loss. So New Mexico State should fall to 2-8 after next week. Then they've got a road game against Middle Tennessee. I think that's a coin flip. Middle Tennessee's terrible. That's a coin flip right there, even though the Blue Raiders probably play better at home. And then to close out the season, we could be talking about the battle of 2 and 9s. UTEP versus New Mexico State, Battle of I-10, and that is on deck Saturday, November 30th. That is the season finale. And for both these teams, they might not be playing for anything but pride and for the future, right? That has to be stated as well. Somebody said it earlier today on Twitter and X, and it should be said again. UTEP is playing for the future right now. They're hoping that they can instill some excitement within their own fan base right here, or their own young nucleus, I should say. And New Mexico State on their side, they've got a new head coach over there as well. And they want to have some sort of momentum going into next season, especially by beating their rivals right here. So for Tony Sanchez over there and for Scotty Walden over here, that game, Battle of I-10, November 30th, it might mean something when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think it definitely means something to both schools, right? You just highlighted a little bit of the New Mexico side, and I think that you just take a step back, and for UTEP, like I've already highlighted, for Scotty Walden, your opportunity to win your first road game, right? Your first real opportunity to win a road game against New Mexico. Obviously, huge rival for the Miners. A way to set the tone right at the end of your first season as the head coach of the Miners is to beat New Mexico State, and then send off that first season. The one you didn't have, it didn't start the way you wanted it, but you were able to cap it off with the big win at your rival's home place. That would be huge if you're Scotty Walden, and then you would just be able to steamroll that into just recruiting and the next season. So I think that would be spectacular, and that's really what this what the coaching staff wants.
El Paso Visuals Deportivos. He tweets into the program, and it's our pal. He's hilarious. He says, I was going to call into 600 ESPN El Paso to talk about UTEP football's double overtime win, but all you guys said last week was you turned the page on UTEP football and you're moving on to men's basketball. Even though they had 3 games left, one of those versus their rivals, I guess all the calls will be on the loss in Utah. Hashtag MinerTalk. Oh, Visuals Deportivos, you're hilarious, my friend. I still maintain that, man. We're talking about a season here where you're trying to play for pride in UTEP football, and you're trying to play for the future here in UTEP football. Meanwhile, for UTEP men's basketball, despite the loss, they're playing for now. They're playing for winning here in this season, and that's the expectations, even though they almost lost by 30 when it was all said and done. The expectations are very high for this basketball program. But, Visuals Deportivos, I'll just say this as well, just to button all of this up together. I predicted a win. As far as negativity goes, I've had it when it comes to UTEP football. I've really been negative in certain points of the season, but I still picked them to win this game because I believe in this squad, and I thought that they would at least get this one done. I picked them last week, and I picked them the week before. So, as far as this squad goes, they've definitely played, or they're playing the softer portion of their own schedule. These are the easier teams out of CUSA. This league is terrible in Conference USA. And yeah, I'm going to give them, the benefit of the doubt when they're at home against a bad team like they were against today. So yeah, let's keep it moving. 915-505-6009. That's our telephone number. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and 600 ESPNElPaso.com. A couple other posts to get to, or actually a couple other things to highlight from this football game today. Steve Escajeda texting into the program. How about that game that Trey Goodman had? Well, how about it, man? 12 catches, 150 receiving yards today, 12 targets, by the way. So I love that. And he averaged 29 yards after catch. Wow. You talk about the yak for Trey Goodman right there. That was a way to go out on senior day. 12 catches, 150 receiving yards. No touchdowns for him. Kenny Odom gets the trio touchdown on his side. Trio of touchdowns, I should say. But Trey Goodman, what a game, Alberto. What'd you notice in the first half when you got to see him in person, Trey Goodman, with 150 receiving yards today?
Yeah, they were just feeding him today, and he did a phenomenal job. Not with no drops, right? They had a lot of screens as the game they run. So a lot of the times, though, this time they were extremely successful. So you got to take your hat off for Trey Goodman. Spectacular game here in his final game in the Sun Bowl.
Yeah, most definitely on that. Let's also keep it moving with some of the other superlatives from the receivers. Kenny Odom, man, this guy. He's going to get the bag this offseason. That's all I have to say with him, man. He's going to get the bag. 8 catches, 108 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. This guy's ultra productive. And that final touchdown where he toe taps it into the side of the end zone, it's just really impressive by Kenny Odom, man. He is a guy on this team who has always been level-headed, always been a top-level player on this squad all season long through the good and the bad. And Kenny Odom, if you're looking at an MVP for the overall part of the season, at least on offense, he's one of mine. I mean, he's a leader on this squad. He really, he's a great person when you talk to him off the field as well. And for Kenny Odom, he might be undersized, but I would take, all right, here's the hot take for you, Alberto. I'd take Kenny Odom over Tyron Smith. That's me. Redshirt sophomore out of Savannah County Day High School. He played for Austin P last year as a true freshman, and now he's with this squad here as a redshirt sophomore. Give me Kenny Odom over Tyron Smith. Are you going Tyron Smith over Kenny Odom? No disrespect to him, or where are you going with that one?
Yeah, just from what I've seen, and especially in games where the Miners haven't, particularly been doing any good, right? He's been out there trying his hardest, and you got to commend that. Not every single player in this day and age of the NIL is going to do that, right? Some guys might quit on you, so I definitely do want to commend Trey Goodman. He's one of the good guys.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. But for Kenny Odom,
Kenny Odom.
Yeah, Kenny Odom is just one of those players right there that slot receiver, undersized, but makes big plays, like as if he's this slot receiver that everybody needs to key on. So big fan of him. The running game kind of took a bit of a step back, although they finished 45 carries, 120 yards on the ground, 2.7. That was all they averaged on the ground tonight. But it was all the passing game offensively for UTEP that held them throughout this matchup. Miners finished out with 453 total yards of offense compared to Kennesaw State, who only had 300. But I don't think that's a good comparison. I think the comparison that I want to bring up is by quarter, maybe even by half, right? At the half, this is what that UTEP defense did in the first half. At the half, UTEP put up 222 yards of total offense on their side. They only had 14 points to show for it, which isn't great. But they held defensively Kennesaw State to just 60 yards of total offense. And Alberto, aside from that kickoff return for a touchdown, which, by the way, we could talk special teams until we're blue in the face, man, I don't really know what to even think about that total yard. Holding the Kennesaw State Owls to 60 yards in that first half of total offense, again, the defense shows up, Alberto.
Yeah, the way they held them to, like you said, 60 yards, it kind of felt like, whoa, this game might get out of hand for Kennesaw State, but no, they're able to come back in that third quarter, and in that third quarter alone, Kennesaw State puts 132 yards of total offense. So they kind of come back, they turn things around, and the Miners, yeah, they've had a lights out defense all year. They really flaunted it there in that first half. It's really hard for them to sustain it when they're not putting drives together and sustaining drives on the other side to give a guys a chance to rest. It's kind of hard for them to sustain it into the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I would say that, look, you forced 6 punts against Kennesaw State. That was excellent for UTEP's defense, but are we ready to talk about it? Are we ready to? No, I don't. I think we need Sal Montes to talk a little special teams. So I'm gonna save special teams talk for Sal Montes when we bring him on here later on in the program. But 21 first downs for UTEP's offense today. They were 7 of 17 on third downs, which isn't great. 1 of 3 on fourth downs, which isn't great. 3 of 5 on red zone situations where, you miss those 2 opportunities when they have it inside Kennesaw State territory in the first half, and you don't get a field goal, you don't get a touchdown on those. Those are the ones that frustrate you, but you live with the fact that you win this game in double overtime. So, I'm nitpicking here. I was, I'm nitpicking at some of the different parts for this offense at times, Alberto. But at the same point, man, when you have those red zone opportunities, you just got to seize them. And that's been a struggle all year long. UTEP has one of the worst red zone offenses in the country. They are rated one of the worst in the country. And those are the things, like you look 3 weeks from now to that New Mexico State game, Battle of I-10 to close out the year. You can't be 3 of 5 in the red zone and win that game in Las Cruces. That's just the bottom line in my eyes.
Yeah, you can't be inefficient in the red zone, especially not at your biggest rival. That's not going to sit well with anybody, especially if you lose a close game out there. You hang one, a game you can win, right? But I think that a lot of those issues obviously come off the insecurities that you have with your kicker, unfortunately, right? Insecurities that you didn't have last year. So I think that moving forward, I really wonder if what they're gonna do to address that kicking issue, or if they're gonna have a special plays implemented for the red zone to kind of extend their drives because they're not kicking it on fourth.
That's another part of it too, right? I was also, I was talking with my dad and my uncle, over throughout the game, and it was so interesting because they were even pointing out the red zone problems, but nothing is new with this squad as far as the red zone issues, like just punching it in, or just saying let's play it a little conservative. Let's give our kicker some momentum. Let's have him go out there and attempt a field goal that's just an easy chip in. So they didn't end up doing it that way. They went for it on fourth down twice in the first half, and as a result, they ended up paying for it. Our telephone number, 915-505-6009, 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and 600 ESPNElPaso.com. If you missed earlier, just mentioning it again, men's basketball lost today 89-60. It was just a tough loss for this men's basketball squad. We had the coverage here on 600 ESPN El Paso, and then we talked about the double overtime game here for the Miners, winning in football 43-35. So if you want to talk about either of these, give us a call, 915-505-6009. By the way, Alberto, 14,728 people. That is the reported attendance tonight out at the Sun Bowl for the football game. Did it feel like 14,000? I felt like, in those final videos that people were sending out in double overtime when UTEP was pulling this one out in the end, that place got pretty loud. People got spirited at the Sun Bowl. Did it feel like 14,000 though?
You got to color me surprised. I didn't think it looked like 14,000, but also maybe I wasn't out there when everybody was in their seats. So I didn't see that many people out there, but I'm sure that if they say there was, then I'm sure there was. I think that if they got loud when it most mattered, then there you go.
Well, I was hearing that the shade side had a lot of people, and the sunny side was the one that kind of struggled when it came to just having butts in the seats. But hey, it's to be expected. It's an afternoon game, and also a 1-8 squad going into this matchup. So there you go. 915-505-6009. Couple other mentions to talk about here on Miner Talk. El Paso Visuals Deportivos, he chimes in and says, I've never called into 600 ESPN El Paso. I just talk about both basketball and football. Good ratings all around. True, you guys did predict a win. Who wins versus New Mexico State in 2 weeks between UTEP and New Mexico State? I'm going to pick UTEP. I think UTEP gets that win. And to start the season off, I thought this team could get 4 wins. Of course, that's not going to happen now, but could they finish out 3-9? Could they match last year's win total? And can you go into the offseason feeling much better about this squad and about this program than you did in the middle of the season? Yes. Yeah, I mean, if you're playing better football in November, if you're winning 2 games in November, I don't even care the opponents that they're facing. I think that's a step in, I guess, the right direction. Now you just want to see things shape out better for the Miners moving forward. You want to see momentum carry into the early signing period. And yeah, we'll see what happens when it's all said and done with some early signing recruits that is approaching, by the way. That's the second week of December where UTEP announced all their early signees. And there were even a couple players, I should say, out of the class of 2025 who had verbally committed this past week to UTEP. So just a lot of stuff all around here when it comes to UTEP football storylines. Hey, I want to talk a little bit more about the defense today, and I want to highlight a couple different players. I will, of course, want to get to the special teams. There's a lot to unpack with UTEP special teams, and talk a little bit more about this offense and how efficient they were to close this one out when it really mattered and when it was all said and done. So we'll talk all those storylines, plus my favorite play of the game by an El Pasoan on a trick play. We'll talk about that and more. Alberto Reta, Adrian Broadus, we are taking you through a busy double-dip edition of Miner Talk. UTEP football gets the win, double overtime, 43-35. You want to talk about it? 915-505-6009. And then on the men's basketball side, Utah Valley destroys UTEP 89-60. Let's talk about it here with us on Miner Talk as we continue. Let's take a timeout right now, though. When we come back, more of Miner Talk right here on 600 ESPN El Paso. Tell us where we're at here.
Tells us we're at 149.
All right, almost the 2-hour mark here on Miner Talk. We're keeping it going. It's a double dip edition of UTEP. First off, the men's basketball team lost to Utah Valley 89-60. Football ends up eking out a double overtime victory, 43-35. You want to talk about either of them? Let's do it. 915-505-6009. We're brought to you by Jack in the Box. With 15 locations across El Paso and Las Cruces, Jack in the Box is the ultimate spot before and after every game. Also want to give a big shout out to the Oscar Arieta Agency. Hey, if you know a hometown hero, if you want to know somebody who would be great to nominate for the next hometown hero who is honored at the next UTEP football game or men's basketball game, like the upcoming game on Tuesday, go to riseup915.com, click the Hometown Hero button, and check out all that you need to nominate somebody who could be the next hometown hero at the next UTEP game. Thanks to the Oscar at the Allstate Agency, the official insurance agent of UTEP Athletics. As we continue here on Miner Talk, along with Alberto Reta, I don't think we're going to get Salmontes today. I don't think we're going to get UTEP Zay today, which is a bummer. But I think the post game is going long, Alberto. I think the players on the UTEP side of things, the coaches on the UTEP side of things, they are speaking right now. They are excited about their second win of the season, an emotional one and an absolute roller coaster of one. Your thoughts? You throw it my way. I mean, this is do you feel like emotionally this is one of those that the football team will hold on to right now, or do you just kind of think that, hey, if it's a win in this young culture, this young program, relish in it and just keep going?
No, I think that the program's definitely going to bask in this one, enjoy this one. I think that they faced a whole bunch of adversity, a whole bunch of difficult situations, and they want to celebrate their wins. I sent you something over about during the press that happened during the press conference, and just kind of the guys really were glad to be able to walk away with this one and to be able to give the seniors a win on their night, and I think that's huge. That can't be understated.
Yeah, and speaking of seniors, by the way, Miners have a lot of seniors on. I keep saying young. I keep calling this a young team. They have a lot of seniors on this football team right now, so I'm glad you bring that up. Corey Chapman tonight, he had 9 tackles, an interception, 1.5 tackles for losses, and that interception, by the way, Alberto, that was a really key situation, a really key moment, and the Miners absolutely needed that. That was one of your senior standouts that you could look at from this matchup, but you could also look at Trey Goodman. Don't forget, 150 receiving yards in this matchup right here for the senior in his final game at the Sun Bowl, playing in front of the Miner fans. Those two guys, who would you say had the better senior night when you compare the two? Corey Chapman, who helped the Miners with a huge turnover, came through with a big 1.5 tackle for losses and 9 total tackles, or do you go Trey Goodman with 150 receiving yards tonight?
I'd go Trey Goodman just because of this. Tell me what you think. 12 targets and 12 receptions. That's extremely hard to be perfect like that, and also to be targeted more than 10 times.
Yeah.
And to have 12 receptions on 12 targets. That's you got to celebrate that. That's phenomenal. I'm going to give it to him. Also, I don't want to let this go unnoticed. He doesn't pout when he doesn't get the touchdown. Right, his guy Kenny Odom, he gets 3, he gets none. He doesn't say anything. A lot of guys might complain, or you might get mad. No, coach, I'm done. I don't want to play anymore. He goes out there, he competes until the end, and you got to appreciate that.
Yeah, you do. You really do. And I've liked how Trey Goodman has maintained himself and his mentality all season long, despite not necessarily being the WR1, like the wide receiver 1. He was not necessarily that role all season long. Yet today, 240 total yards of offense, or I should say total yards, all-purpose yards, because he also contributed with 90 punt return yards. So he was also doing it in the punt return game. That was really good for Trey Goodman. I mean, they needed something like that from a player like him, and what a great way to finish out his senior night in having 150 yards in receiving. What a game for him. I mentioned I wanted to talk a little bit more about the defense. Let's talk about them right now. 11 total tackles by linebacker Nate Diamond. He also had 2 TFLs, 2 tackle for losses in this matchup as well. And then Josiah Allen, 6 tackles. He also contributed in this matchup with no passes coming his way. Just a very, very impressive outing from a guy like Josiah Allen. Not to mention, don't forget about this guy right here, Katie Johnson, down low, that D lineman for this squad. He's a senior. This is his final game out at the Sun Bowl. 5 total tackles for him. He had a 1.5 tackle for losses in this matchup as well. And then I want to highlight another player who is also a senior, Maurice Westmoreland. That's the guy that everybody will remember here as far as one of the top edge rushers that played for this year's squad. He finished with 3 tackles today, 2 solo on the defensive line for the Miners. Let's do it. I got to talk about it. CUSA Freshman of the Year candidate Kyron Duhan. He just catapulted himself into the top 10 of sacks in CUSA, Alberto. He had 2 sacks tonight, 9 tackles overall. He finished with 4 assist tackles. He also had a pass breakup, which means that he's throwing his hands up at the D-line and hitting and batting down a ball. Oh, man. Kyron Duhan, the true freshman out of Texas. I mean, this guy's a Texas high school product. What a killer. He's got to be one of the leading candidates for CUSA Freshman of the Year.
Yeah, his name's got to be at the top of the list. You really hope he gets it. I think it's really going to weigh on these last two performances, especially that NMSU game. I think if he can go out and put on another performance similar to this one, I think he can kind of really make the difference and get himself that. And barring any other crazy, spectacular performances by other freshmen around Conference USA. So, yeah, Kyler Duhan, I really like him. I really like Nate Diamond. He had he led the Miners with 11 total tackles, 5 solo tackles, 2 for a loss. So, yeah, I mean, this defense, I love these guys because they keep the UTEP Miners in a lot of these games that they shouldn't be in, and these you could tell from this one and a couple of these ones that just passed like that La Tech.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, I just this squad, right? They give up the big play. Does that bother you that they do give up the big play at times, and they just I don't necessarily want to call it mental lapse, but it's high risk. And then when they don't necessarily get the reward, the risk ends up being a big touchdown by the other team.
Yeah, it's either big reward or big miss, right? It kind of feels like that, unfortunately, for the Miners, and that puts them in difficult situations because your offense doesn't really let you rest either. So if you put the offense back out there quickly and then they put you back out there quickly, you've just double whammied yourself. So yeah, it's been a difficult season. So it'll be interesting to see how they build off of this. Coach J.J. Clark's done a phenomenal job with what he's had this year.
915-505-6009. Let's do this. This is uncharacteristic, Alberto. Would you mind jumping over to KLAQ? Would you mind asking Sal if he's got maybe 2 minutes to give a quick final thoughts here on the program? We'll get some final thoughts maybe from Sal. If he's busy, no problem. We'll just start winding it down here on the program. But we're also waiting for UTEP Zay Galindo. He is waiting also for head coach Scotty Walden for the media availability here when it's all said and done. Just to reel off some of the stats that I just found staggering by Skylar Locklear. 8 rushes, 30 rushing yards for him. But again, 327 through the air, 4 touchdown passes, and 85% completion percentage for him, a QBR of 208.1. And now we welcome on our co-host of Miner Talk, 2 hours into Miner Talk. It is Sal Montes, and he has been busy all day long. He has been here since about 10 in the morning trying to put fires out left and right, both figuratively and literally. And Sal, you are joining us here on Miner Talk, where you're talking about UTEP eking out a 43-35 double overtime victory against Kennesaw State. Fans are very bullish on this win. I guess it was an emotional win for this UTEP squad right here. How do you see it? Give me all your thoughts.
Oh man, I think it's a game that somebody had to win. I mean, let's go back 4 weeks or so. This could have been the Zero Bowl, and these two teams were playing to not be the worst team in Conference USA. So that's right out the gate. The numbers say that, but when you throw away the records and stuff, these two teams let it all out there. It was a good effort on senior night. A lot of miscommunication and a lot of mishaps, and a lot of shooting yourself in the foot on both sides. You look at what Kennesaw was doing. I mean, tell me if you've heard of this. Calling a timeout out of a break.
Oh man,
that wasn't UTEP.
That
was Kennesaw. Maybe UTEP had one in them. They were kind of going for tit for tat. But no, man, I think Skylar Locklear just powered his way. He's on the post game right now on KLAQ, and he said he found out he was going to start pretty late in the week. Don't know what that means as far as the day goes. However, he's a baller, man, and he showed what he could do today. How could I say? What he showed today, we kind of saw that when they played Southern Utah. Unfortunately, we saw a lot of things today that we saw in Southern Utah. We'll get into that later, but yeah, man, Skylar Locklear, credit to him, an absolute baller today. Kenny Odom, absolute baller. Goodman, a lot of guys had a lot of good plays, but yeah, man, I think it was just a matter of somebody having to win and UTEP coming back, but kind of looked like they were down in the dumps. They allow a touchdown on the first play in overtime. They score on their end, and then when it comes to Kennesaw, they have a chance to win the game. in
Yes,
overtime,
yes.
and they don't. So, man, it's incredible for them. So, yeah, good job.
Okay, I'll ask you this, Sal, because you just mentioned that right there. This is just your closing thoughts. We've been asked a bunch of people. A bunch of people have been asking.
And we're still on, by the way, too, over there. So
Yeah,
I'll run back after this.
Really quick, before we close out, people have been asking New Mexico State. They already chalked the Tennessee game as an L, like we have here on this show. But the New Mexico State game, if you had to pick, where is UTEP going? Do they win that game?
I don't think so. I think these games, when it comes to the teams at the bottom of Conference USA, you could kind of roll the dice. I mean, Kennesaw got the win over Liberty, who suffered their first loss in Conference USA as a member of FBS at the hands of Kennesaw, right?
Yeah.
And for the Miners, they beat Kennesaw. It's kind of like pick your poison, you know what I mean? And New Mexico State, while we're at it too, they beat Liberty not too long ago.
There you go.
Anyway, that's a whole other thing. I know it's a different team now, but kind of roll the dice, man. And I think what powered UTEP a little bit was there was a post-game conference. I forgot who it was, but he was mentioning how they had a talk and all these other things to go out there and just leave it out all on the field. Who's to say that New Mexico State doesn't do that on their end? And it's a rivalry game, so no, I think the Aggies take that one.
Where are you at with Buzz Fabiano?
I'm all out, man, just like his field goals.
Okay, there we go. That's Sal Montes, our co-host here on Miner Talk, giving us some final thoughts here before we wind it up. And before we finish out the show, let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. You're listening to Miner Talk, brought to you by Jack in the Box here on 600 ESPN El Paso. Thank you very much, Sal. We are continuing here on the program, 915-505-6009, 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and 600 ESPNElPaso.com. We are continuing out here on the program. This has been insane, an insane show. And Utah Valley defeats UTEP earlier today in men's basketball, 89-60. UTEP football, they eke out a win, double overtime against Kennesaw State, 43-35. We're brought to you by Jack in the Box. We appreciate the callers. We appreciate people chiming in on Twitter and X, and we appreciate you listening on this program. I feel like it's been insane, Alberto, because of our emotions today. Like, we've gotten very low today, and at one point, actually multiple points throughout today's broadcast here on Miner Talk, I thought that we were going to be talking about UTEP sweeping losses, both teams losing today. Instead, football wins, men's basketball loses. What ranges of emotions we went through all night long.
Yeah, and even it dates back to the beginning of the basketball game, right?
Yes.
At the start of the basketball game, the poor start by the team, and then kind of them bouncing back in that one. And then, yeah, the UTEP Miners football team almost losing that game at home. And then the disappointment of not being there in person, and then them almost losing it in overtime. There was definitely a lot of up and down, the ebbs and flows of being a UTEP Miners fan. But unfortunately, the basketball side just ends with being on the low side, right? Well, let's see how they can build off of this.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I get you on that one completely. I posed on Twitter and X right now, 600 ESPN El Paso, and my Twitter account, Adrian Broadus. UTEP quarterback Skylar Locklear in the 43-35 two overtime win, 28 of 33 with 327 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, an 85% completion percentage, 208.1 QBR, no turnovers, no sacks. When's the last time you could remember a UTEP quarterback having those kind of numbers? Let us know if you can figure that one out right there. That's definitely stumped me because, when you're looking at this performance by Skylar Locklear, just on paper, it feels like one of the more efficient numbers or stat lines that you're going to find in recent UTEP quarterback memory. Going back to Twitter and X, this is going back to basketball. This is from CN Lara. The crazy thing is UTEP men's basketball shooting 5 of 15 from three-point is actually a huge improvement. Oh, man. Miners last year, by the way, to your point, CN Lara, they were one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country. Last year, they averaged 31% from beyond the arc. So, to your point, by these measures and by a 33% hit rate from beyond the arc, although it's not much, it is actually a better performance 3-point shooting wise that UTEP is, obviously used to. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying there. A couple other thoughts to mention as well. Isao Hermosillo posts into the program. You have Aaron Price working for the athletic department. He needs to be on the coaching staff, coaching special teams. The defense has been absolutely terrible. Well, we don't have Sal Montes here on the program, so we got to talk about it between us here, Alberto. He had a lot of thoughts on special teams, but we'll talk about it right here. I'll reel off a couple stats. Adam Jacklin, the punter for UTEP, 5 punts today, 203. He averaged 40 yards a punt, which doesn't feel bad, but then you look into it right there. He had a couple tough ones today. He had one for 30. He had one that was blocked. The first one was actually blocked, and it was a 27-yard punt when it was all said and done. I would say for Adam Jacklin, man, you get the highs, but the lows are low. And the 4 block punts, at one point, it falls a little bit on the punter, too. They lead the nation in blocked punts. That's a horrible stat right there on special teams.
Yeah, an extremely horrible stat. But look, even when I try to put the horrible blocked punts aside, sometimes, or not even sometimes, a lot of the times, the punts off of his foot just look so bad. They look so bad. They look wobbly. They look like duck throws, and then they end up just bouncing out of bounds near midfield. So it ends up being better for the Miners. Just go for it. Or throw up an interception that's going to end up around the 50 because the punts are not working in your favor. They never seem to bounce in your favor and really get going like they do against you, that they pin you down deep. So I expect them to address that in the offseason.
Our pal, Gerald Hitter, haven't heard from him a long time, but it's great to hear from the Hitman himself. He says this: 3 losses by 7 or less points. If we had 5 wins right now, people would have such a different outlook on this team. We would have, we would be on the bowl hunt. All major publicity or all major publications had us finishing near the bottom of Conference USA. So close. Too bad people give up too easily and quit on UTEP. El Paso can do better. That's coming from Gerald Hitter. Gerald, I'll just say this. You're my pal. We can talk truths over here. Let's be honest about all this kind of stuff with UTEP football. Too bad people give up so easily and quit on the team. People don't necessarily quit on the team. If you would say they quit on the team, you wouldn't have fans who still care about this program who are out there for a 1-8 football program. So let's be realistic, right? Like, fans will support winners, fans will support hype, but when you don't deliver on the hype, which is how I think a lot of El Paso felt after the Southern Utah game, they're going to be out. And that's the Fairweather fans, Gerald. How you build diehards, that's what UTEP has to figure out right now, because let's be honest, there's not a lot of people like you who will be a diehard no matter what. You will support UTEP football and basketball and all the sports no matter what, win or lose. But at the same time, for this UTEP football program right here, they've got to figure out on their side how they can consistently win to bring a new breed of fans to come out to the Sun Bowl to get excited about these games. Like, that's the next step in this right here. So, yeah, there we go. As far as Gerald Hitter goes, I appreciate your thoughts. And I appreciate your comments here as we continue. Well, I think we can now really close things out because we've got Zay on the phone line. Zay is going to join us next, and then we're going to start really winding it down. UTEP Zay with us, 915-505-6009, if you want to weigh in with your thoughts here after the UTEP double overtime win. Zay, when is the last time you can remember a UTEP quarterback putting up numbers like Skylar Locklear did today?
Well, I really couldn't until, UTEP's Drew Bonney reminded us it was Jamil Showers in 2013. And, I mean, Skylar Locklear had himself a game. It was very, very enjoyable to watch, UTEP quarterback just sling it the way he did. And he just looked really, really comfortable in the pocket tonight. He made he did the right plays, and he made some extra plays, right? He made those plays that, he was an improviser. That 2-point conversion especially, I look back at it, I mean, what a play he made. It's such a huge, thing to do in that moment of the game. So Skylar Locklear, he's easily my player of the game, and that's a tough thing to say because there were so many standout performances tonight.
There were a lot of different ones. We'll get to some of the other ones that I know you want to highlight, but I want to get your initial takeaways after the press conference. You got to hear from coaches, you got to hear from players. Give me your thoughts. What were some of the thoughts from head coach Scotty Walden after the second win of the season? Miners are now 2-8 on the year.
Yeah, both Scotty and some of the players that the press was able to talk to. I mean, they kept saying it's all about adversity, right? Fighting through adversity. And that's exactly what they did. They kept highlighting, when things were about to go wrong, how strong their culture is. That it kept them, intact. They didn't freak out, and they knew, we could still win this game. And Scotty Walden alluded to the Southern Utah game. He said that, going into overtime, they wanted redemption. They wanted redemption. They didn't just forget about that game. They just knew how bad it hurt, and they knew this was their shot at redemption, and it didn't start off well, right? Kennesaw State scores on the first play of overtime, but, I mean, they were able to pull out the win, and Scotty Walden was visibly very happy in the press conference.
Oh, and as he should, right? Like, he should be excited. He should be happy about this game. This should definitely be one of those things where you get a chance to see this squad use this game as momentum for maybe that New Mexico State game to close out the year. And for the Miners, that could be an opportunity right there to get their first road win of the season. Even their record out from last year's squad, 3-9, 3-9 in back-to-back seasons. But Zay, we were asked, from earlier today. This was a really interesting point from Gerald Hitter, and I'll have to get your thoughts on this one right here, because you can look at this season in two ways. You can look at this season glass half empty, like we've looked at it, a lot of points throughout the year, or you could look at this glass half full, where you're thinking, okay, maybe there is stuff that you could build on for next year. And maybe some of the stuff, while it doesn't look great at times, other times it looks awesome. Gerald Hitter said UTEP's had 3 losses by 7 points or less. If they had 5 wins right now, people would have such a different outlook on this team. Your thoughts on just that, where maybe in a different universe, we're talking about a 5-win UTEP team at this point.
I agree with it, right? This team was close, and close as win you football games, but you take what you can get in year one. Obviously, you would have liked to have 5 wins, but that's something they're going to sell everybody on. They're going to sell recruits. I mean, year one looks bad on paper, but if you really dig into it, we were there in most of the games, and that's it's something to take away from. Otherwise, what's been a rough season, right? So I really do agree with that glass half full, glass half empty. I mean, coming into, the mine shaft or coming out of it, after the game, Scotty Walden, I mean, he said it really, really loud. He was like, we're going to be more of this next year with all the fans celebrating. There was recruits celebrating with the fans and the players and Scotty himself. So, I mean, they're going to build on this. They're going to use this no matter what, and they're going to try and catapult, that momentum going into next year.
Hey, I'll ask you, Zay, who had the better senior day performance? Trey Goodman, 150 receiving yards, or Corey Chapman, 7 total tackles, an interception, and 1.5 tackle for losses?
I got to go Trey Goodman. I mean, he really did step up in such a big way tonight, I guess today, this afternoon. And, 12 targets, 12 receptions, 100 and something yards. He was everywhere. He was a leader, in the huddle, on the sidelines. Scotty Walden alluded to that, how crucial it is to have a guy like him leading your team. So, I got to go with Trey Goodman, but Corey Chapman had an amazing game as well. I mean, both of those guys really stepped up on both sides of the ball. And, another underrated part of Trey Goodman's game is, ever since he's taken over the punt returning duties, it's been a little bit better. He's no disrespect to Cam Thomas, but I think he's a little bit more shifty and better with the ball in his hands, especially with, guys coming at him like in a punt return. So, I got to go with Trey Goodman.
Okay, last thing. I'll just throw a name at you and you just take it, okay? Kyron Duhan.
Oh, man. I mean, he is a fun player to watch.
Is he CUSA Freshman of the Year? He is now catapulted into the top 10 of CUSA in sacks.
He's there. I mean, it's going to be close. But, I mean, the media got to speak to him. He's an energetic guy. He's a fun guy. He's a freshman. obviously things that he can work on, but he's just really good already. He's, in that top half of this defense, and not only the defense, top half of this team, right? When it comes to players and how good they've been. 2 sacks today, 2 TFLs, 9 tackles. I mean, that's hard to do when you're playing on the line. Getting 9 tackles, he was everywhere. He was stopping the run. He was, dominant in the pass rush. He is, your number one prize possession, right? When I look at David Terrell in basketball and Kyron Duhon in football, they go hand in hand. But I say at least at this point in the season, I look at Kyron Duhon as, he's really good. You got to keep him at all costs for at least another year, right? So you can get 2 years out of a guy like that. You do that, and dominant. Conference USA Freshman of the Year. It should happen. I don't know if it will, but it should.
Okay, last UTEP football question for you, UTEP Zay. Shea Smith scores his first touchdown of the season via a nice little rushing touchdown on his side. Your thoughts on that play and Shea Smith today?
I mean, it was important. It was a really important score. All of these, scores were, but I mean, Shea Smith, to go out there, he got stopped on the first drive that he was out there on 4th down near the end zone. And for him to come back a half later to kind of just put that behind him and run a perfect, fake reverse, it obviously meant a lot to both him and to Coach Walden. So really, really happy for Shea Smith and really glad that they were able to score. I mean, that, in the grand scheme of things, that was a huge, huge score and a lot of trust to put in a true freshman.
Yeah, I'm with you there completely, man. Hey, Zay, I appreciate it as always. Any thoughts on basketball?
Oh, man. I didn't get to watch the whole game, but I don't think I really needed to watch the whole game to know what happened.
Yeah, you could run it back later tonight and figure out what happened. Good stuff, Zay. I appreciate it as always, man. We'll talk next week, okay?
Thank you.
That's UTEP Zay joining us here on the program. That is one part of our show here on MinerTalk, one of our co-hosts. Let's keep it going with phone calls. It's Danny who's next up with us. Danny, good evening. What's going on?
Oh, not much. How about yourself?
Danny, we're hanging in. Give us your thoughts on either football or basketball.
I wanted to talk football. 2 things right off the bag. The Miners need to get a real punter and a real kicker. That kicker's cost them at least 2 or 3 games this year. The kicker they had last year was a great kicker. I don't know what happened to him.
Oh, what, are you talking about Gavin Beckley? Last two seasons ago? That was an all-time great.
The kicker last year.
Oh, their kicker last year was Buzz Flabiano. If you're asking for the punter, it's Josh Sloan, and he's playing for Memphis right now. Memphis, one of the best teams out of the American Athletic.
Isn't Flabiano his first year at UTEP?
No. Flabiano, this is year 2, my friend. And he was the same kicker last year. He was also 70% last year.
I didn't know that. I thought it was his first year, man. He cost them a lot of games.
No, and last year he was a walk-on. This year he was a scholarship kicker. And he kicked every game last year for the Miners.
It looks like a crapshoot every time he goes out there.
It's a mental thing, don't you think? Like, when the lights are bright, I just, I know you have to rely on somebody like that to close out a game, but when lights are bright, that's when he struggles.
Yeah, it could be. And the punter, that Sapper-style kicker that he's kicking, I mean, if you're going to kick it like that, at least kick it out away from the guy, not straight at him. That killed him at the end, that last punt.
Yeah, I'm with you there, man. Hey, any other thoughts, Danny, before we wrap it up here? We got New Mexico State on deck for this UTEP football squad in 3 weeks.
Yeah, the play calling's got to improve drastically. I mean, that going up the middle has not worked all year. I don't know why they're still trying to run up the middle.
Yeah, no doubt. Danny, good job, man. Appreciate the phone call. Thanks for weighing in. 915-505-6009 as we continue. Michael Briones. Shout out to Briones, who is chiming in on the program. It's the best UTEP quarterback performance I've seen in a long time. I can't remember the last time I've seen someone make those throws outside the numbers. Joe Chacon. The UTEP Athletics family is awesome. Shout out to Coach Aaron Foster and his wife Julie for the love. What a great group of people. I'm so happy to see what the future brings. Hashtag reppin' from El Chuco now. Hashtag Brock is my OG. Hashtag MinerTalk. And he took a picture with Scotty Walden, who's screaming in the camera, took a picture with Coach Aaron Foster, and then takes a picture with Callie Walden, a.k.a. Coach Scotty Walden's wife. I guess during the game. So Joe Chacon, number one fan out there that you're going to find. That's our pal Joe Chacon. Alberto, we're winding it down. At this point, we're just kind of talking to ourselves here. Final thoughts here. Both men's basketball and women. Men's basketball loses, but football ends up getting the win here for tonight. Your thoughts?
Well, for football, you got to find a way to get past this Tennessee game unharmed, and for basketball, you got to find a way to stop coming out freezing cold as you did last season, as you did today, and that's really what cost you that game. I think if you come out a little hotter, shooting a little better from the field and from the three, well, it's a different thing. And we are joined by Sal Montes, the one and only.
I was going to say, and as we really wind it up, Sal.
We just ended.
Wow, great stuff, Sal. And we're past the 2-hour mark, and we're winding it up here on the show here on this side. We were actually just going to wind it up here. But, Sal, now you get the final words here. Men's basketball loses 89-60. Football ends up winning double overtime 43-35. Where do we turn the page next?
Well, we'll start with football. You got to wait a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So there's that. But as far as a basketball, you got to see how they can bounce back. And we had a tweet, I think, on the last MinerTalk saying that it's hard to really count the one against Permian Basin. And I agree. I was like, I have to make sure. But no, they are Division 2. So that's a game that you can't really bank on it. So like we talked about earlier, I think it was on Sports Talk with Steve as well. We're not going to be able to tell much about this team until later on. Then on the last MinerTalk, we asked the same question. It's going to be a while before we see how this team can do it. But it will be a little bit of a tell, though, because they got their tails kicked today, man. That was crazy. I don't know what was going on over there, but
no, it's true. I mean, we spent the first hour just talking basketball. Now we switched it over to football after the emotional win. We were doing the double header either way. We called it earlier this week, the double dip. We focused on men's basketball here for 600 ESPN El Paso. As we said it last week, we turned the page on the football season over to men's basketball season, which I feel very confident about doing. We're still talking about a 2-8 football team here, which got a win, and I predicted the win earlier this week, and I felt like they should get this win. I felt like they should have had last week and the week before. But this coming in from Cesar Cubillos. He says, thank God for instant replay. Overturning the fumble in double overtime made all the difference. Kennesaw talked a lot of trash on the sideline. It's so good to see them take the L. We talked about this a lot, Sal. There was a lot of points where this game, they could have lost this game. The fumble that he's talking about right there, that Ice Cubillos is talking about, that would have gave Kennesaw the ball back in second overtime. They could have just kicked the field goal and won it.
And it just hit me because that's how crazy this game was. There were so many things going on. It was a roller coaster. And I think earlier I had mentioned how they gave Kennesaw a chance to win it. But no, that's right. That fumble got overturned. I think it was Goodman who had it. And eventually, they got the ball back upon further review. But, man, what a crazy game. And I do got to say this, as far as the field goals go, this is the second game where Buzz Fabiano gets bailed out by a penalty, misses the original kick, and then still misses the ensuing field goal. So that's tough, man. And it kind of makes you think like, hey, when it's fourth down and even if you're in range, just the rest of the year, right? Like who cares? Unless you don't want to get shut out, but why not just go for it? And then while we're on the topic of later downs, I don't know how many times today, because I don't have a stat sheet in front of me, but how many times did they run the ball on third down? And at one point, Skylar Locklear was 14-17 before the touchdown pass that he had. They were probably, I think, like one of 5, 1 of 4 or something on third downs when it came to running it. And it didn't even matter if it was like 3rd and 4, 3rd and 7. They got to be more efficient in that regard, especially when you have a guy who's hot. He's 14-17 at that point.
Wow.
Now, this is all, hindsight 2020. He finished with 4 touchdowns. This guy was slinging it all over the field. But these are the things that you got to take from today's film and implement going forward. Ride the hot hand.
Sal, you just said it right there, and the stats back it up. Miners were 7 of 17 on third down conversions today, but they were 4 of 5 when they threw the ball on third down.
Wow. Hey,
how about that?
What do you know?
You talked about the numbers right there, and you were totally right. Enrique Ortiz, Skylar had some glimpses and glamour, along with reminding me of Jordan Palmer. In fact, he probably put up some Palmer stats. I can't wait to see him in Mountain West play. Front page UTEP. I'll take 2 of 3 for the Miners tonight. Shout out to football for the dub. And we can't forget volleyball for sweeping Liberty today. They are now a win away from matching a program record. By the way, tomorrow is Kayla Thornton Day. How about that, Sal?
That's awesome. Shout out to KBT, an El Paso legend, Irvin Rocket, all the way to a UTEP Miner, and ultimately, a Dallas Swing, and now a New York Liberty member. Shout out to Kayla, man. She's amazing. God bless her and her family. Blessed and highly favored. She's the best, man.
Eric sends us a tweet. Jordan Palmer, maybe. That's the only name that comes to mind for those kinds of numbers. I don't think you're going to find a quarterback in the modern era, or even the last, the 21st century, aka, of seeing any quarterback put up the numbers that Skylar Locklear had. 327 through the air, 4 passing touchdowns, 85% completion rating, 208 QB rating, no turnovers, no sacks for Skylar Locklear.
What about Trevor Vitito?
Vitito probably put up some big stats like that too.
I would say was a starter as a freshman, man.
Nah, I mean that's a good
point.
What?
I don't know.
That's a really good point. Well, I mean, no, you're exactly right. And Trevor Vitito played under Mike Price, who would let him throw the ball all over the field. So to your point, maybe Trevor Vitito had some of those types of numbers. But when I was looking at the Jameel Shower numbers, couldn't find it there. Couldn't find it with Gavin Hardison. Any kind of game that really reminded you of that one right there. But our very own Drew Bonney, I say our very own, but our friend Drew Bonney, who works with the UTEP Stats and Information Group, he would probably be on this one right here, right now, trying to be, he's probably going to be looking up when's the last time a quarterback did XYZ. And the one that really hits me is that completion percentage, that 85% completion percentage. It's impressive to me. But to your point, Sal, I'm looking at Trevor Vitito's numbers every single game in his senior season. He's throwing over 300. So as far as passing yards go, not going to find one like you will definitely find other passing yards from other previous UTEP quarterbacks who've hit those kind of marks, but you might not find as a quarterback who's going to be as efficient while doing it.
No, it was amazing tonight. Shout out to Locklear, man, and he was super excited to get back. Just hearing him on the post game show, somebody who was saying how, man, this is something he was really looking forward to, especially getting back out there and going at it. Obviously, they got the win, but you like to see it. And some of the reads that he was making, man, there was a drive. I think it was the touchdown drive where Jackson had X amount of carries in a row, where he touched the ball like 4 or 5 times in a row, and ultimately that sets up the touchdown. But just the check down looks and being able to see what the defense was giving him. Oh, you're packing the box. All right, throw it to Kenny Odom out there for a touchdown. So, great job, man. Redemption game for sure.
No doubt about it. Hey, that's going to be how we wrap this one up. No need. We're just talking to ourselves at this point right here. Men's basketball loses 89-60. It's Utah Valley getting it done. UTEP football gets a double overtime win, 43-35. A double dip edition of Miner Talk here, presented by Jack in the Box. We appreciate everybody calling throughout the last 2.5 hours, tweeting into the program and joining us here. We talk men's basketball first. We close it out talking some football, and that is how we will wrap it up. We appreciate everybody here on the program. For Sal Montes, for Alberto Reta, for Zay Galindo, I'm Adrian Broadus. We are signing off. Thank you so much for listening to Miner Talk here on 600 ESPN El Paso.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.